Chapter 1990. After the people of Ishta's clan hurriedly left, the adventurers who had been hiding came out one by one, wiping their cold sweat with lingering fear while sweating profusely. Ishta's family's whore, she actually left without saying a word. She didn't put us in her eyes at all. Don't think that's the end of it. I will definitely send the bill for destroying the flowers and plants here to Ishta's family. Forget it, unless you don't want to go to Happy Street in the future. Do you dare to collect that stinky money from others? Be careful not to be dragged to the city gate by those whores in the middle of the night. Then you will be completely famous. Forget it, I can't afford to offend them, can't I just hide? That's right, the group of adventurers cursed as they returned to their homes as though nothing had happened. Only a few adventurers who had been violently smashed holes in the ground in front of their homes continued to grumble, but they quickly filled up the holes in their homes. For this town, this level of destruction was really nothing. Although this was a safe floor where monsters wouldn't appear, it didn't mean that there were no monsters. For example, the monsters that came down from the 17th floor or the monsters that came up from the 19th floor would all flock to this floor and occupy it as their king. That was why the town was built in such a dangerous place like a cliff. It could be used to block some monsters, and it could also be built using natural rock walls and crystals. It was easy to build a town. It was said that in the past, there were monsters that attacked this town and destroyed it completely. However, the adventurers here didn't care at all. When the monsters attacked, they immediately retreated. When the monsters finished venting, they would leisurely rush back and rebuild the town. In any case, this town was simply built with wood and tents. Almost all the adventurers who could come to the 18th floor were adventurers with LV 2 or above. With the ability value of a group of adventurers with LV 2 or above, rebuilding a temporary town made of wood and tents couldn't be done in minutes, but it could be done overnight. Therefore, these adventurers who opened shops in the town to make money had long been used to it and didn't really take it seriously. By the time the surrounding adventurers had mostly dispersed, the ground that Freeney had destroyed had already been filled up. It was as if nothing had happened, leaving everyone speechless. As for Noah's group, they moved to a hotel and began to discuss the matter of Ishta's clan. I think we should teach that toad girl a lesson. In a cave that had been transformed into a hotel, Noah's group sat around a messy wooden table, listening to Tiona's complaints. That ugly freak has been causing trouble for AIC for no apparent reason. It's so annoying, Tiona grumbled. If Finn and Riveria were here, they definitely wouldn't have let them go so easily. Why do we need Finn and Riveria to be here? Tiona laughed. If you really want to teach Ishta's family a lesson, you have me, Ishta, and Ishta. Isn't that enough? Yes. Rifia seemed to have been angered by Freddy's disgusting self-righteousness, especially when she thought about how Freddy, with that toad-like face of hers, kept saying that she was prettier than the Miss A's she was looking forward to. Her pretty face tensed up. Although the leader of Ishta's family is LV5, Miss Ishta and Miss Ishta are also LV5, and Miss Ishta is LV6. They can definitely teach Ishta's family a lesson. Although no one knew the overall quality of Ishta's family without seeing it with their own eyes, but in the group of combat whores just now, except for Ishta, the rest of the combat whores were only LV3. There was no need for two LV5 level 1 adventurers to deal with an opponent of that level. Either Ishta or Ishta could deal with it. In that case, there was nothing to be afraid of at all. This was what Leafio wanted to express. In this regard, Bell just shrank his neck and didn't say a word. Because there was a clear gap in the level of the conversation. A LV5 adventurer can take care of a group of LV3 battle whores. That was true. However, in the same way, LV3 combat whore could deal with Bell, who was LV1, easily. Therefore, Bell couldn't interrupt at all and could only shrink his neck and listen. Lily, on the other hand, frowned slightly and said, "Don't worry." But why did the leader of Ishta's family suddenly become strong? Lily pointed out the most crucial question. At that moment, everyone, including AIC who had been silent, cast their eyes on Noah. Under everyone's gaze, Noah couldn't help but recall the Volpera girl who was put into an iron box by Ishta's family. So, Noah said so. There's no doubt that Ishta's family should be like me. They must have mastered some means to increase their strength in a short time. Otherwise, with the strength of that arrogant toad girl, it's impossible to win against AIC. Noah looked around at the group of girls. The question is, what does that means? Everyone suddenly became silent. Only Tjorn suddenly tapped his palm. Now that you mention it, I suddenly thought of something. Everyone's gazes immediately gathered on Tyogni. Hey, AIC, Leafia, do you remember there was such a rumor before? Ishta said so. Ishta's family is actually hiding their strength. Hiding their strength. Belle and Lily were slightly startled. Hiding their strength. Noah's attention was also attracted. AIC, Leafia, and Leafia seemed to have thought of something and looked at each other. Little brother, you should know about it, right? Although an individual's ability value is a secret of a clan, if it's only the level, it must be recorded in the guild. Only then can we plan the level of the family, Ishta said with assurance. Previously, a few clans who were hostile to Ishta's family complained to the guild, saying that Ishta's family members were far stronger than the official level reported to the guild. In other words, the information about the family members was false. I remember that at that time, the guild seemed to have accepted the lawsuit and was involved in the investigation. In the end, it was confirmed that this matter was just a rumor. Leafia tilted her head. Moreover, Ishta used this as an excuse to bite back at the clans and even the guild that brought up the accusation and demanded a huge fine. After that, she annihilated all the hostile family members and sent all the overgods back to the heavens. This matter caused a huge commotion at that time. But Belle seemed to be a little confused. What does that have to do with this matter? You still don't understand. Lord Belle. Lily sighed out loud. If Ishta's family members have mysterious means to increase the power of their members, then this explanation makes perfect sense. Ishta's family members did not hide the level of their family members and did not lie about the information of their family members. However, Ishta's family members had mysterious means to increase the power of their members. During battle, they could display greater power than their actual level, which was why it gave others the impression that they were lying about the information. Thinking of this, everyone felt that this explanation was very reasonable. It's one thing for Master Noah to have such a method, but even the other spawn tribes have similar methods? Lily asked in a disappointed manner. Could it be that it's so easy to change levels? The girls of Loki's family laughed bitterly. Of course, that was impossible. Otherwise, there was no need to be so surprised. In fact, even Noah did not expect that other than himself, there was someone else who had such means. The scene of the Volpera girl sitting in the box kept floating in his mind, making Noah fall into deep thought. Seeing Noah like this, AIC asked softly. What are you thinking about? Hearing this, Noah suddenly smiled and said such a sentence that stunned everyone. I'm thinking if I should really find time to go to Happy Street. Chapter 1991. The cold night wind began to blow through the earth. The white walls and giant towers that reached the sky silently exuded a solemn atmosphere. In the night, countless magic stone lamps illuminated the streets like stars, making the entire labyrinth city Aurali as lively and noisy as ever. In a corner of the bustling labyrinth city, there was a street with a somewhat different atmosphere from the rest of the place. This street was lively as well. However, the liveliness had a kind of atmosphere that made people feel hot all over. There, the buildings were like hotels, and they were filled with people. There, the color of the magic stone lamps were very ambiguous peach-colored, making people's emotions involuntarily rise. Over there, there were many women wearing very bold evening gowns that exposed their entire backs and waists. They were all wearing coquettish and heavy makeup. There, the men all had a somewhat wretched smile on their faces, holding hands with scantily clad women, walking into the surrounding buildings very intimately. Under such circumstances, the whole street was filled with a charming atmosphere. People would unknowingly be led by the nose by the atmosphere, walking towards a depraved but unforgettable road. Here was Happy Street. Almost all the buildings here were brothels. Almost all the women here were prostitutes. The men were here to flirt with women. The women were here to compete with one another in terms of beauty. There was no doubt that this was a place where decent people would never come. However, this was the territory of Ishta's clan. The base camp of Ishta's clan was in the deepest part of Happy Street. It was a magnificent and beautiful palace. At this moment, on the top floor of the magnificent and beautiful palace, outside an open-air balcony, there was a figure. It was not an exaggeration to say that she was a woman with 1,000 charms. The woman had a gorgeous crown-like crown, and her body was also full of jewelry. She looked like a noble woman, giving people a feeling that she was born in a very luxurious family. However, this mature woman only wore a belt that could not be called clothes at all, a waistcloth and a thin cloth belt that covered her full upper body. The amount of skin exposed to the air was shocking. Her figure was slender, and the curves of her body were perfect to the extreme. Her appearance was outstanding, and could be called as beautiful as a fairy. His brown skin had an indescribable wildness. There was a choking sweet perfume lingering on her body. This person was the master god of Ishta's clan. The leader of the Happy Street, the goddess of beauty Ishta. However, this beautiful goddess kept looking at the direction of the Tower of Babel. Her eyes were filled with dark emotions that even mortals could not understand. That emotion was called jealousy. What right do you have to be so high and mighty while I have to be looked down upon by you in such a small corner? Ishta stared at the top of the towering Tower of Babel with her sharp eyes. The words she uttered were filled with heart-palpitating hatred. In what way am I inferior to you? Undoubtedly, they were both beauties, but Freya was much more famous than Ishta. Undoubtedly, they were both charming, but no one thought that Ishta was prettier than Freya. In addition, Freya's clan was much stronger than Ishta's clan. All these advantages made Ishta's heart filled with unparalleled jealousy and hatred. Sooner or later, I will drag you down from there. After leaving this sentence, Ishta withdrew her gaze. She raised the pipe in her hand, took a puff, and then exhaled a thick cloud of smoke. At this time, a young man came in from outside and reported to Ishta respectfully. Lady Ishta, Lady Friuli, and the others are back. Back? Ishta didn't even turn her head. She lay on a chair on the open-air balcony and said casually. Friuli, that idiot, probably won't report anything to me. So, let Aisha come over. Yes. The young man retreated. Not long after, Aisha walked into the open-air balcony with her slender and tall legs. She didn't lose her elegance and didn't care about trifles. As soon as she came in, Aisha said directly. We failed. Really? Ishta still looked indifferent as if she didn't care about the result at all, but her slightly narrowed eyes looked up and stared at Aisha. What's the reason? An unexpected person appeared, Aisha said faintly. We ran into a level 1 adventurer from Loki's clan. A level 1 adventurer from Loki's clan. Ishta raised her eyebrows and almost immediately understood. Could it be the swordswoman? Yes, Aisha replied concisely. Then, that ugly monster Friuli went berserk and made all of Freya's clan run away. That toad girl is really a person who can't do anything right. If it weren't for her LV5 ability value, I would have kicked her out. Ishta snorted. Forget it, it's just a group of members who can't show up in front of Freya's clan. It's not a big deal if they don't stay, as long as they can disrupt Freya's clan's mission. The reason why the battle horse of Ishta's clan appeared on the 18th floor, and even the LV-5 leader was sent there, was because Ishta received news that Freya's clan seemed to be on the move. They gathered a lot of members and entered the underground city. Although she didn't know the purpose of Freya's clan, since they gathered a lot of members, and almost all of them were adventurers above LV-3, it was definitely not a simple mission. When she heard this news, Ishta didn't hesitate to send out the elites of her clan. Her purpose was to disrupt Freya's clan's mission and make them go for wool but come home shorn. In order to suppress Freya, Ishta really put in a lot of effort. Don't worry about the trash of Freya's clan. Ishta concluded with this sentence and then changed the topic. However, Freeney shouldn't have done anything to the swordswoman, right? If something happened to the swordswoman, then Loki's clan will definitely fight us to the death. Only this must be avoided. Fortunately, Freeney didn't take down the swordswoman. The strength of the female swordsman is indeed quite amazing. Even Freeney who leveled up couldn't do anything to her. Aisha narrowed her eyes. In the end, if it wasn't for the tyrant, I'm afraid that the battle wouldn't have ended so well. The tyrant. Ishta finally raised her head, straightened her body, and looked at Aisha. The tyrant who rejected Freya's advances has also appeared. Aisha nodded. Suddenly, the corner of Ishta's mouth slowly rose into an arc that made people's hearts beat faster. Aisha. Ishta asked this sentence casually. In your opinion, what do you think of the tyrant? Flawless. Aisha gave the highest evaluation in her life without any hesitation. There's no doubt about his strength. His personality is calm yet domineering. He's without a doubt the most outstanding man I've ever seen in my life. I can understand why the beauty Freya couldn't help but woo him in public. Even after being rejected, she still pursued him relentlessly. Is that so? Ishta nodded with satisfaction, and the smile on her face became more and more charming. If the powerful man who can resist Freya's charm and the beauty's proposal is won over by our Ishta clan, how much do you think Freya will be stimulated? I don't know how much that goddess will be stimulated. Aisha closed her eyes. I only know that even Freya's clan and Loki's clan coveted the man, but they couldn't get him. No matter what, it won't be so easy to win him over. How do you know if you don't try? Ishta's eyes were filled with endless ambition. Because he is a good man, there is a sense of accomplishment when you conquer him, right? I don't disagree with this statement. Aisha's mouth also rose. But, what do you plan to do? Ishta didn't answer Aisha's question. When she thought about what kind of expression Freya's face would show when she brought the man in front of her, Ishta felt hot all over. No matter what, that man will be mine, definitely. Chapter 1992. As night fell on the surface, so did the 18th floor of the underground city. Of course, the night on the 18th floor of the underground city was not truly night. It was just that the crystals that emitted light dimmed. The crystals that provided sunlight on the 18th floor were sometimes bright and sometimes dim, making this safe floor also have day and night. Of course, the time of day and night on the 18th floor was different from the surface, but the difference was not that big. Therefore, even if there was a slight difference in time, it was not a big deal. However, if monsters suddenly attacked at night, it was almost no different from the surface. It was an extremely dangerous thing. Therefore, adventurers were not willing to camp in the wild. They were afraid that they would be attacked by monsters unknowingly and die in their sleep. Apart from those adventurers with great abilities or large groups of adventurers. At the end of the grassland not far from the entrance of the 17th and 18th floors, a bonfire was burning slowly in front of a forest. Tiona, Tiny, and Leafia were gathered around a bonfire and chatting. Bale and Lily were setting up tents. It seemed that they were really preparing to camp with the girls of Loki's clan. It was a pity that Tiona and Tiny kept complaining about sleeping with them, but Noah vetoed it in the end. Although the 7 of them could only share one tent, Noah made a prompt decision and directly gave the order. The boys and girls took turns to rest. When one party rested, the other party was responsible for keeping watch at night to avoid being attacked by monsters. Tiona and Tiny, the open Amazon sisters, were the most reluctant about this, but Rafia and Bale were both relieved. It would be too difficult for this pair of innocent men and women to sleep in the same tent with the opposite sex. After the basic rules were set, everyone moved here and began to prepare to camp. As they were borrowing someone else's tent, Bale and Lily took the initiative to set up their tents, while Noah went to the river to get water for everyone. Rafia, who was chatting around the bonfire, turned her gaze to the entrance of the forest from time to time, faintly showing some worry in her eyes. "What's wrong, Rafia?" "Leafia." Tiona immediately giggled. "Are you worried about little brother?" "Of course not." Rafia's ears trembled, and she was a little embarrassed and angry. "I'm worried about Miss Ace." "Is it Ace?" Tiona immediately turned his head, looking towards the entrance of the forest as well. It is indeed a little worrying. Taking a closer look, at the entrance of the forest, Aic's back was facing the crowd. Her head was raised and she was looking at the dark forest. Her beautiful blonde hair swayed in the wind. It was as beautiful as a painting, attracting Bale's attention and peeking at her many times. Those who didn't know better would think that Aic was in a daze. However, the young ladies of the Loki clan who knew Aic well understood that she was in low spirits. "It must be because of that toad girl," Tiona said hatefully. "After the fight with that toad girl, Aic has been like this, lishless." "That's not surprising." Tiorn sighed. Aic has always been pursuing strength. It was not easy for her to rise to LV6, but she couldn't even win against a LV5. Even if the other party used some means to increase her strength, she should still feel resentful, right? Miss Ace shouldn't be so stubborn, right? Rafia seemed to be really worried. "Why don't we go and comfort Miss Ace?" "Comfort?" Tiona was a little distressed. "But I'm not good at comforting people." "It would be good if Riveria was here." Tioni shrugged. Although Riveria is not very good at comforting people, at least when facing Riveria, Aic can't help but open up and talk to her. "Then what should we do?" Rafia began to feel anxious. I can't just leave Miss Ace like that." Tiona and Tioni both nodded. They also couldn't just leave Aic alone. Just when the three clumsy little girls didn't know what to do, a voice barged in. "What can't be left alone?" Hearing this voice, the young ladies were startled at first, then they all turned their heads and looked towards the source of the voice. Noah, who was holding a wooden cup filled with water, was walking over slowly with a puzzled look on his face. "Why do all of you look like you've lost a wallet, but don't know if you should go and find it?" The three young ladies ignored Noah's ridicule and stared blankly at Noah. Then, their eyes lit up. "Looks like there's no need to look anymore." Tioni smiled. "The best comforter has come knocking on our door." "Comforter?" Noah was stunned. "What and what?" Ignoring Noah's shock, the twin Amazon sisters stood up and pushed Noah's back at the same time. They pushed Noah in the direction of Aic, and said so as they pushed. All right, don't worry about that kind of small matter, little brother. Let's go and have a chat with Aic." Chat with Aic. Noah immediately understood. Looking at Aic, who was standing at the entrance of the forest in a daze, Noah smiled helplessly. "That girl, is it so easy to take things too hard?" With that said, Noah did not resist Tioni's strength, and under the twin sisters' push, he walked towards Aic. Rafia hurriedly followed behind. Bale and Lily had just finished setting up their tents. They looked at each other and quietly followed after them. Not long after, the group all came to Aic's side. AIC seemed to have sensed the movement and turned her head, her gem-like eyes turning to look at the group. Her beautiful eyes sparkled like stars in the night sky, and Rafia and Bale were almost stunned by her beauty. Everyone. AIC looked at the group that came to her in a daze and asked hesitantly. What's wrong? No. Nothing. Rafia hurriedly said. It's just that Mr. Noah seems to have something to say to Miss AIC. AIC blinked and looked at Noah. Under AIC's gaze, Noah was speechless. Do your best, Tioni, and Tioni muttered softly behind Noah's back, causing Noah to almost lose his temper. Noah sighed and looked at AIC. Are you still thinking about what happened during the day? Under Noah's gaze, AIC lowered her head and muttered softly like a child who had done something wrong. I'm just thinking about what that power is. Of course, she was not referring to Frey's power, but the mysterious method that allowed Frey's strength to increase greatly. Evidently, after seeing that method, AIC began to subconsciously think about it again. She wondered if she could also increase her strength like that. Actually, I don't really understand. Noah looked straight at AIC. Why are you so obsessed with increasing your strength? AIC fell silent. It wasn't just AIC. Even Tioni, and Rafia fell silent, causing Belle and Lily to be confused. That was what Tiona had said. Actually, I've always had this thought. Tioni seemed to want to say it out loud. AIC, why do you only want to become stronger? Tioni and Rafia looked at AIC, as if they were also curious about this question. It seemed that even among Loki's family, not many knew why AIC was so obsessed with obtaining power. It was possible that no one knew the reason. AIC lowered her head as if she wanted to avoid everyone's gaze. After a while, she lowered her head and said, I just want to become stronger. This reason was as good as not saying anything. Because if she really wanted to become stronger, she wouldn't have displayed this level of obsession. There must be some secret in AIC's heart. It was this secret that made this young lady pursue power. Tioni, and Rafia felt extremely complicated when they thought about the secret in AIC's heart that drove her to pursue power that they didn't know about. Noah also fell silent for a while. After a while, he lifted his head and said plainly, Do you know about fairies? When these words came out of Noah's mouth, AIC's expression changed for the first time. Chapter 1993. Fairies. Together with the elves, they were known as the representative magical races of the lower realm. However, compared to the elves, fairies were more legendary. This was because the number of fairies was not only much less than other races, but they had always been a very mysterious and magical race. They were known as the most beloved children of the gods, and also known as the avatars of the gods. If the gods were perfect beings, then the fairies were just below the gods. Therefore, the fairies were known as the race closest to the gods, and their potential far exceeded that of other races. As a magical race, it was natural that fairies were born with the talent to use magic. Even without grace, they could still use magic. However, the fairies were not only proud of their talent in magic. Fairies could often cause miracles. To put it in simpler terms, almost all of the immortals were a race that possessed a mysterious ability to develop. In this world, there were many legends and stories where fairies appeared. Sometimes, they would guide the existence of heroes, allowing the heroes to achieve fame. Sometimes, they would lend a helping hand to the heroes, helping them to achieve their mission. Sometimes, they would provide humans with magic, giving them great power. Sometimes, they would give humans powerful weapons, giving them tools to overcome difficulties and defeat evil. In fact, some immortals would even turn their bodies into weapons to accompany the heroes throughout their lives. They would conquer the north and the south, leaving behind an illustrious reputation. In the era when the gods had not yet descended to the lower realm, and when humans were just a poor race, the power of fairies was almost inseparable from the appearance of human heroes, making great contributions. Since the gods descended to the lower realm, the races began to communicate with each other, and obtained the power called God's grace. The miracles caused by the fairies, who were once known as legends, were gradually replaced by ability points. They were originally a very mysterious race, and people's demand for them had decreased. Naturally, the fairies appeared less and less, and their legendary and mysterious nature became more and more. At least, in Eulalie, there were almost no fairies as members of the clan. However, it was not that fairies did not exist in Eulalie. Not to mention the other fairies, the goblins of the fairies often appeared in Eulalie's life. They looked very similar to the old man. Although they did not have great strength, they could make precious metals and gems. They had a pair of skillful hands and had made many famous weapons and props. As for the immortal spirits other than goblins, such as fire spirits, water spirits, wind spirits, thunder spirits, light spirits, and so on, they had almost become legends and were rarely seen. Therefore, to people, immortals were still a very legendary race. However, for Noah, who had been to the world of the elven messenger's sword dance, fairies were not mysterious existences. This was because the immortal spirits of this world and the elves of that world were very similar in nature. It could be seen from the name. Earth spirit, water spirit, wind spirit, fire spirit, light spirit, thunder spirit, etc. These immortals were just like the elves in the elemental spirit world. They could be said to be the embodiment of the elements. Otherwise, there wouldn't be examples of immortal spirits being able to transform themselves into weapons. Therefore, in this world, beings like Aster and Athena should be called fairies rather than fairies. Under such circumstances, Noah smiled faintly. Actually, I have formed a contract with a fairy. AIC's gem-like eyes immediately widened. Formed a contract with a fairy. Bale and Lily sucked in a breath of cold air. Tiona, Tiony, and Leafia exchanged glances with each other. Then, Leafia said weakly. The so-called contract is, you should have heard of it, right? Noah shrugged. A mysterious fairy was moved by a hero and decided to help the hero in battle. She transformed herself into a weapon and went through all difficulties for the hero. Isn't this a very common plot in stories? Noah raised one of his hands and stroked the elven mark on the back of his hand. Thus, I made a contract with such an immortal and made her my sword. The initial mark on the back of my hand is the proof of my contract with her. Hearing this, everyone turned to Noah's hand and looked at the elven mark on the back of Noah's hand. So, Leader has a fairy companion as a weapon. Bale looked at Noah with admiration. Indeed, Leader is an amazing hero. Is that so? Noah said indifferently. But, if you know the reason why I formed a contract with Aster, with a fairy, then perhaps you won't think so. Everyone was stunned. Noah did not care about the others. Instead, he looked straight at AIC and said something to her surprise. The reason I formed a contract with that fairy is very simple. It's not because I'm a hero, nor is it because she wants to help me. It's because I'm the only one who can withstand her curse. Curse? AIC was completely stunned. That's right, a curse. Noah laughed bitterly. In the past, the fairy that formed a contract with me had a contractor who lent his power to her and helped her save a continent. But because her power was too strong, a weak human had to pay a price if he wanted to use her power. The price was his life. Wah! Everyone almost exclaimed. However, Noah didn't mind it and continued speaking. And the fairy that formed a contract with me didn't know about this at the beginning. When her contractor lost his life because of her own curse, it was too late for regrets. So, she sealed herself in a sword and swore to never become someone's sword again. Noah said softly. The reason was because she didn't want her power to be used to harm others and cause them to lose their lives. At this moment, everyone present fell silent. Only Lily's expression changed slightly and she spoke anxiously. Then Sir Noah formed a contract with that fairy. Doesn't that mean, don't worry, I'm fine? I just said that I can withstand this curse. My body is born with a special constitution. No matter what kind of curse it is, it has no effect on me. Noah suddenly smiled. That's why I got the sword. Lily heaved a sigh of relief. As for the others, they couldn't help but sigh. This person in front of them really gave them one surprise after another. He had endless tricks up his sleeve. Even the fairy looked at him in a new light and became his weapon. That was a treatment that only legendary heroes had. Looking at the looks of admiration on everyone's faces, Noah shook his head. I'm not telling you this because I want to tell you how amazing I am. Noah turned his gaze back to Ace. I want to tell you that there's nothing wrong with pursuing power, but having too much power may not be a good thing. Ace's eyes flickered fiercely. Not only my lovely contractor, but I'm also touched. Noah said very calmly. After all, I had the same problem when I was young. I had too much power, but I didn't have the ability to control it. As a result, it caused me to go berserk many times and brought a lot of trouble to the people around me. If it wasn't because the person who picked me up was a great expert, I think I would have killed the people around me with my own hands. Everyone didn't know what to say. But Ace noticed a detail in Noah's words. Picked up. Ace said, half surprised and half hesitant. Then, you. Yes. Noah said helplessly. I have no parents, so I should be considered an orphan, right? Ace immediately shut her mouth. You're digressing. Noah laughed. Anyway, I want to tell you that maybe you have a reason to pursue power. That's not wrong, but if you're too stubborn, you may not be able to achieve the result you want. Noah enunciated each and every word. What you need to strengthen is your heart, then your power. Don't get the order wrong. Ace fell into deep thought. The surroundings gradually returned to silence. An indescribable atmosphere filled the air and didn't calm down for a long time. Chapter 1994. The next morning. After waking up, Noah, Bale, and Lily began to pack their luggage and prepare to return to the clan tribe. The main purpose of coming to the dungeon this time was to help Bale level up. The middle level was originally an area that only LV2 was allowed to explore, and with the record of clearing all the way from the 13th floor to the 17th floor yesterday, Bale, who was only LV1, should have accumulated a considerable amount of experience points, enough to be used to level up to LV2. Therefore, Noah did not intend to continue to delay and was ready to embark on the return journey early in the morning. Bale and Lily naturally had no objections. Under the organization of Noah, they immediately prepared to return to the clan tribe. To Noah's surprise, Ace and her party seemed to be ready to return to the ground. They had packed their luggage early and even put away their tents. Looking at Ace and her party who were ready and approaching, Noah was puzzled. Didn't you plan to stay and earn money? Money can be earned at any time. Tiona threw such a sentence directly. Compared to earning money, the matter of Ishta's clan tribe is more important. Yes. Tiona nodded. Although I don't know what Ishta's clan tribe is hiding, the means that can greatly increase their strength is amazing. If all the members of Ishta's clan tribe can use that means to greatly increase their strength, it will be terrifying. So, we plan to return directly to the clan tribe. Leafia continued the words of the twin Amazons. If it's the Lord God and the leader, there may be a way to collect information. We have to remind the clan tribe to be careful of Ishta. Although Ishta's clan tribe and Loki's clan tribe had no deep hatred, in Eulalie, the battle between the clans was a normal thing. Known as one of the two most powerful clans of Eulalie, Loki's clan tribe had become famous, but at the same time, it had become easy to provoke trouble. A tall tree attracts the wind, and a wide sea raises waves. Only by being careful would they not have big problems. Maybe, at some point, Ishta's clan tribe would target Loki's clan tribe. Therefore, AIC and the others had already decided last night that they would directly embark on the return journey today. They would return to the clan tribe and discuss today's matter with Loki and Finn. Is that so? Noah pondered for a moment before replying. If that's the case, help me pass a message to Loki and Finn. A message? Both Tiona and Tiny were curious. What is it? Pay attention to a Volpera girl among Ishta's clan. Noah looked around at the girls of Loki's clan. If you have any information about that Volpera girl, tell me. Volpera. Tiona, Tiny, and Leafia were slightly stunned. They were extremely puzzled. Fox girl. What does that have to do with this matter? Clearly, these girls didn't notice the Volpera girl in the metal box. The three girls saw Noah's serious expression and knew that this might be the key, so they silently kept it in mind. AIC was the only one who seemed to be thinking about what Noah said last night. She seemed to be in a daze, and no one knew what she was thinking about. Noah didn't say anything else, and set off on the return journey with his companions and the girls of Loki's clan tribe. When the party came out of the passage and arrived at the main room on the 17th floor, Bale, who had drawn his dagger from his waist, seemed to have suddenly thought of something. He stole a glance at Noah from the corner of his eye, as if he wanted to say something but didn't dare. Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If you want to say something, just say it. What are you trying to do by keeping me in suspense? No. I'm not keeping you in suspense. Bale hurriedly shook his head, and then scratched his head in embarrassment. I just wanted to say that since you have a weapon made of immortal essence, leader, why don't you use it here? His words made all the girls' eyes light up, and they all looked at Noah. AIC, who had been thinking about something, also turned her gem-like eyes to Noah. Obviously, everyone was curious about the weapon that was only limited to the legendary immortal spirit. Noah didn't mind letting them see the power of the Demon Slayer and Heavenly Sword. It's a pity that there aren't any suitable opponents. Even if I show you, you won't be able to see its true power. Noah pursed his lips. If that's the case, I might as well not see it. With that, Noah took the lead and walked forward. Although everyone was a little disappointed, they had to admit that on floors above the 18th floor, including the floor master, there wasn't a single opponent that could make Noah use a weapon made of immortal essence. Therefore, everyone could only suppress the curiosity in their hearts and follow Noah forward. On the way back, Ace, Tiona, Tiny, and Leafia did the same as yesterday. They didn't make a move and left all the monsters to Noah and the others. Noah once again summoned the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear to increase Bale's strength, allowing Bale to kill his way back to the 13th floor from the 17th floor. He continued to accumulate experience until he returned to the top floor. Only then did he stop and begin his journey. After spending about half a day, the group finally came out of the dungeon and returned to the labyrinth city, Eulalie. Then, little brother, shall we part here? Tyogni waved goodbye to Noah. Don't miss me too much, okay? If you're free, come to our base and have a seat, Tyogni said with a smile. If it's you, I think Loki and Finn will welcome you. I'm sure Lady Riveria wants to talk to Mr. Noah about fairies as well. Leafia bowed politely. You're welcome to be a guest anytime. Got it. Noah smiled. If I'm free, I'll go over and have a seat. After that, Noah looked at AIC. Coincidentally, AIC also raised her head and met Noah's gaze. Under AIC's gaze, Noah smiled helplessly and reached out his hand to pat AIC's head. Don't think too much, or you'll get old easily. After saying that, Noah left the central square with the envious Baal and the silent Lily. They walked towards Hastia's base. Aic watched as Noah left. After Noah's figure disappeared into the crowd, she touched her head where Noah's hand still lingered and murmured softly, "That's right, Noah. Every time he touches my head, I feel so happy." Why? On the other hand, Noah and his group returned to Hastia's base. "Lord High God!" Baal called out impatiently as he opened the door. "I'm going to..." Before Baal could finish his sentence, Noah suddenly reached out his hand and stopped him. At almost the same time, Hastia's voice sounded from the other side of the door. "That's enough. Say no more. I'll never agree." As soon as Hastia's voice faded, another voice sounded. "Goddess Hastia, you have to think about it carefully. The conditions we've offered are already generous enough." However, this sentence seemed to have angered Hastia, causing her voice to sound like it was filled with anger. "No matter how good your conditions are, there's no way I'll agree to them. Just go back and tell your Lord God about it." As soon as she finished speaking, the other side of the door fell silent. After a while, a cold laugh sounded. "I hope you won't regret it." This was the end of the conversation. After a while, the door was opened, and a neatly dressed youth with a sweet smell walked out. It was as if he often soaked in tenderness. The moment he came out, the young man saw Noah. His pupils shrunk slightly, and he hurriedly lowered his head. Without turning his head back, he quickly left. "Who's that person?" Lily doesn't know either. Baal and Lily looked at each other, not understanding the situation at all. Noah looked at the youth's departing figure and recalled the conversation just now. His eyes slowly narrowed. Although it was only a few words, Noah had already guessed why the youth had come, and even guessed who he was. Interesting. Chapter 1995. After this brief interlude, Noah, Belle, and Lily entered the house and immediately saw Hastia sitting on the sofa with an angry look on her face. "Mistress Hastia?" Lily asked in a strange voice. "What's wrong? What's with that expression?" Only then did Hastia notice Noah and his companions. When she saw Noah, her angry look immediately turned into a pitiful one. Hastia jumped off the sofa and ran all the way to Noah. She hugged him tightly. "Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha ha." Belle and Lily were both startled by his bold manner. As for Noah, he felt helpless. "How many times have I told you not to hug me?" Noah patted Hastia's head. "But I won't knock your head today." Hearing this, Hastia raised her head and stared straight at Noah. "You know everything." "I should say that I guessed it." Noah shrugged, pushed Hastia's petite but plump body away, sat on the sofa, and said in a very indifferent tone. "Isn't it just people from other clans coming to poach?" "Poach?" Lily blinked her eyes. Then, she came to a realization. Could it be that person just now? "That's right." Hastia yelled angrily. "That's nothing. What do you mean by, as long as you hand that person over to us? Are they selling the children of the clan tribe as commodities?" Belle didn't seem to have realized what was going on as he mumbled in a submissive manner. "In other words, that person just now was sent by another clan tribe to poach our people." "That's right." Lily felt that it was only natural. But it's not strange. With Lord Noah's excellence, even Freya's clan tribe and Loki's clan tribe have always wanted to be part of him. If Orly's two strongest clans are like this, then the rest of the clans will definitely do the same. So... Belle began to understand. Lord Goddess is so angry because the other clans are trying to poach our leader. If it's just poaching, then there's no need to be so angry. After all, with Noah's ability, this kind of thing will happen sooner or later. I'm angry because of their attitude. Hestia's brows furrowed. The members of the clan tribe can be said to be the children of the Lord God. It would be fine if they were just poaching, but they actually said something like, if you give them to us, we can exchange them with 10 high-level members. They are exchanging the children of the clan tribe like goods. This is so infuriating. Whoa. There's such a thing. Belle was stunned. That's not strange. In the eyes of most gods, the members of the clan tribe are just tools to ensure their status and wealth. There are only a few over-gods who would treat their clan members as real family and love them, right? Lily's tone became heavy. Noah pondered for a moment and suddenly said. That person just now was sent by Izda's clan tribe, right? Hastia was stunned and exclaimed in surprise. How did you know? Noah didn't answer. Instead, he looked at the street outside the door as if he was looking in the direction that the poacher had left. I haven't even gone to them and they've already come. Belle and Lily also furrowed their brows, looking thoughtful. Hestia asked uncertainly when she saw the reaction of the 3 clan members. Could it be that something happened between you and Izda's clan tribe? You can say that, Noah nodded, but he didn't explain. Instead, he said so. I'll tell you about it later. Now, let's talk about Belle's level up. Belle? Level up? Hestia seemed to be unable to put the 2 words together and couldn't react for a while. Belle's eyes lit up and he looked at Hestia with a hopeful expression. Izda's clan tribe and level up again. I'm really starting to wonder what kind of ridiculous things you've done in the dungeon. Hestia glared at Noah, Belle, and Lily with hatred in her eyes. Remember to tell me everything later. Don't hide anything. Yes. Noah, Belle, and Lily responded helplessly. On the sofa in the living room, Belle was half naked and sitting cross-legged. The ability value on his back was emitting a faint light that slightly illuminated the surroundings. Hestia, who was sitting behind Belle, looked at the new ability value in front of her, and the corners of her mouth twitched. After a while, Hestia silently recorded the new ability value onto a piece of parchment paper. Then she silently placed the parchment paper on the table, attracting the attention of the 3 people present. Belle Crone LV, 1 power, B, 737, S, 937, durability, C, 677, S, 925, dexterity, B, 749, S, 967, agility, A, 817, S, 999, magic power, C, 611, S, 911, magic, flame lightning, quick attack magic, skills, hero's wish, active action, have accumulated power. All ability level S. Lily widened her cute eyes, and her mouth formed an O shape. No level up. Belle, on the other hand, lowered his head in disappointment, looking very dejected. Noah furrowed his brows and looked at Hestia, who had remained silent. What's wrong? Is Belle's EXP not enough to level up? It's enough, Hestia said grumpily. Not only is it enough, but there's still some left. I'm just extracting the remaining EXP to increase Belle's ability value. This is the most beneficial for Belle. After hearing Hestia's words, Noah and Lily understood. Except for Belle, who didn't know much about leveling up, both of them were confused. Although as long as one's ability value reached D stage, it didn't mean that the faster one leveled up, the better it would be. After all, after gaining enough achievements and leveling up, the basic ability value of the previous level would be reduced to 0. However, those basic abilities wouldn't disappear directly. Instead, they would be kept as hidden abilities. The higher the basic ability value before leveling up, the stronger the strength after leveling up. For example, when an adventurer was at LV 1, his strength was at level A, his strength was set at 10, and he could get an increase of 50 by leveling up. Then, when the adventurer leveled up to LV2, his strength would be 10 plus 50, and the total would be 60. When an adventurer was at LV1, his all-ability value was S stage, and his strength was set at 20. The increase from leveling up was also 50. Then, when the adventurer leveled up to LV2, his strength would be 20 plus 50. The total would be 70. Of course, if the two were to be compared, there would definitely be a gap. Therefore, the extra EXP would be extracted first to help Bell increase his all-ability value to S stage, and then help him level up. That way, the benefits would undoubtedly be more. There wouldn't be a second adventurer in the world who could keep his all-ability value S stage as a hidden ability. Of course, with the exception of Noah, who had surpassed the limit and retained the SSS stage of the all-around value at every level as a hidden ability. In other words, I can still level up. Hearing Lily's explanation, Belle was full of hope again. However, Hestia was not in the mood to pay attention to Belle. She kept staring at Noah, like a child who was kept in the dark. Although she didn't feel wronged, she still felt aggrieved. Being stared at by Hestia like that, Noah felt a little uneasy and said, "I'm sorry, but I'm sorry." "Why are you looking at me like that?" Hestia didn't answer. She just continued to stare at Noah. After a long while, she finally opened her mouth. After a while, she said, "Remember to tell me clearly what you did to Belle. For now, we need to level up Belle first." "Okay." Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He knew that this goddess wouldn't let him go so easily. Chapter 1996. In fact, the reason why Hestia didn't immediately help Bale to level up was not only because it was more beneficial, but also because she needed to discuss with the person involved about how to choose the development ability. After leveling up to LV2, Bale could also begin to have the ability to develop. Just like Noah back then, Bale had accumulated enough EXP and had several options to develop his abilities. In such a case, Hestia naturally had to discuss with the person involved first and let Bale pick out the development ability he liked. Because of this, Hestia didn't immediately help Bale to level up, but temporarily delayed it. Finally, after some discussion, Bale's development ability was chosen. Luck. That was Bale's final choice. To tell the truth, even Hestia didn't know what effect this development ability had. The reason was very simple: Hestia had never heard of such a development ability before. In other words, this was a newly discovered development ability. In terms of rarity, it was probably higher than Mystery, which was regarded as a treasure by everyone. However, the effect of this development ability could only be determined after Bale, who was the first to have this development ability, explored it himself. Hestia just gave a guess. Perhaps the effect of this development ability called luck is similar to Noah's skill. Shelter from the world. That was the skill that Noah had when he still had the ability value. The effect of this skill was very simple, which was to infinitely increase Noah's luck. Bale's luck might be the same as Shelter from the World, which was a development ability related to luck. However, Bale's luck certainly couldn't be compared with Shelter from the World at present. After all, Bale's luck was only at the lowest level, I stage. Even if it could increase his luck, it would be quite limited. After deciding on the development ability, Bale finally officially leveled up and became a LV2 adventurer. This wasn't just a difference in level, but also the difference between a high-level adventurer and a low-level adventurer. After leveling up to LV2, it meant that Bale finally got rid of his identity as a rookie and stood out from more than half of the LV1 adventurers, becoming a high-level adventurer. In this way, Bale not only obtained the qualifications to enter the middle class, but also the qualifications to obtain a title. In the future, he could walk on the streets with his head held high. After leveling up, Hestia began to interrogate Noah about what he had done with Bale and how he had gotten involved with Ishta's clan. After knowing the whole story, Hestia looked at Noah as if she was looking at a freak and fell into deep thought. The reason why he looked at Noah like he was a freak was naturally because of the existence of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. As for contemplation, it was a mysterious method to increase the power of Ishta's minions. When Noah asked Hestia if there was a Volpera girl in Ishta's clan, Hestia's answer was as follows. Never heard of it. Yes. Never heard of it. That was why even Hestia didn't know who the fox girl was. While Hestia was deep in thought, Noah suddenly opened his mouth and said something that made Hestia explode with rage. I want to go to Happy Street. At the same time, in the base camp of Loki's clan, a group of high-level adventurers gathered in the lounge. Ace, Tiona, Tiny, and Leafia told everyone what happened in the underground city, making everyone look at each other. Ishta, that slut, really hid something. Loki said in an extremely unhappy tone. Last time, I heard that several spawn tribes jointly sued Ishta's spawn tribe, saying that they gave false information about their spawn tribe, only to be bitten by them in the end. I knew that this matter was definitely not that simple. This Ishta's clan is really good at hiding. No, it should be said that they are very good at deceiving people. Finn stroked his chin and said. Exposing the levels of all the members of the guild, but hiding a mysterious method of leveling up that can overturn the level gap. If all the members of Ishta's clan can really level up using this method, then it doesn't matter whether or not there is any hidden ability value information. Yes. Riveria's expression was extremely serious. Even if all the information about ability value is exposed, it doesn't matter. After all, they can increase their power when they want to. Even if the ability value before it is increased is exposed, there is no harm in it. In fact, it can deceive the enemy. But it shouldn't be to the point where they can increase their power whenever they want, right? Gareth expressed his opinion. To be honest, even if a method to increase one's ability value to the point where it can overturn the level difference exists, I don't think it is something that can be used casually. There must be some restrictions, right? Bert pursed his lips with a look of disdain. If they really think that other people's ability value is so easy to steal, then Ishta's clan wouldn't have been hiding it all this time. They would have used it against Freya's clan long ago. Everyone nodded one after another. With Ishta's enmity towards Freya, if that mysterious method really had no restrictions, then that beauty would have attacked Freya's clan long ago instead of waiting until now. The reason why she didn't do so was definitely because that method had some restrictions. Even a godly tool like the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, although it could increase the user's strength almost infinitely, had a time limit. It was impossible to maintain the boosted strength forever. Moreover, the strength of the user also determined the number of times the boosted strength could be increased. It was not true that the boosted strength could be increased infinitely. Therefore, the mysterious method that Ishta's clan used to increase the power of their members must have some restrictions to some extent. By the way, Loki, little brother also asked me to pass a message to you. Tiona suddenly raised her hand. He asked me to tell you to pay attention to a Volpera girl in Ishta's clan. A Volpera girl. Loki was slightly startled, his pair of eyes flashing with some light. Could it be that the mysterious method that Ishta's clan uses to increase the power of their members is related to that Volpera girl? Since it's that person's words, then it's highly credible. Finn nodded thoughtfully, then looked at Riveria and Gareth. No matter what, since Noah mentioned it, then we might as well collect some information in this area. I think so too. Riveria nodded. That person definitely wouldn't speak without thinking. A Volpera girl in Ishta's clan, right? Gareth was even more direct. I'll instruct my subordinates to collect information. The countermeasure against Ishta's clan was established here. Leafia hurriedly poured tea into the teacups in front of everyone, bringing the meeting to an end. While the others were drinking tea, Tiona inadvertently looked in A's direction. As A's had always been taciturn, everyone didn't notice A's behavior. They saw A's, who was sitting at the side, staring blankly out of the window. This wasn't anything strange. Usually, when Ace had nothing to do, she would also be in a daze like this. But this time, Tiona saw a trace of confusion in Ace's eyes. Tyogny spoke almost instinctively. Ace? What's wrong? That one sentence made everyone stop what they were doing and look at AIC one after another. Riveria, in particular, seemed to be able to see through AIC's heart and directly said this sentence. Is there something on your mind? Riveria. Ace shifted her gaze to Riveria, hesitated for a moment, and said so. I feel like I'm a little strange. You feel like you're a little strange? Everyone was stunned. What kind of feeling is that? Tiona was puzzled. Do you still feel that way? Yes. Compared to her usual tone, IC's tone had started to fluctuate a little. I don't know why, but whenever I think of someone, I have a very strange feeling. As soon as A's words fell, the entire lounge fell into a dead silence. Chapter 1997. At this moment, the upper echelons of the Loki clan were all silent. They looked at each other, and the expressions on their faces were indescribable. It was very interesting. Looking at her companions, AIC's eyes couldn't help but blink, and she spoke weakly with some confusion. What's wrong with you guys? Hearing this, everyone's expression was still somewhat indescribable. Especially Loki, Rafia, and Bert, even their faces were stiff. Only Tiona and Tiny seemed to have encountered something interesting, and their faces were full of excitement. However, before Tiona and Tiny could speak, Riveria spoke first. Although it's a little strange for me to say it. Riveria looked at AIC's confused expression, sighed softly, and asked. AIC, can you describe it more specifically? More specifically. AIC's expression became even more confused. This really made things difficult for AIC. It should be known that this girl was not good at words and deeds, and it was difficult for her to express anything on her face. She was usually silent, like a cold little princess, so she was called concubine by others, and received the titles sword concubine and warrior concubine. There was really nothing more difficult than asking AIC to describe it more specifically with words. Riveria naturally understood AIC very well, and she rubbed her eyebrows and looked at AIC. Well, I know it's a little difficult for you to describe it more specifically, but in that case, we will ask you some questions, and you just need to answer us truthfully. AIC secretly sighed in relief, and gently nodded her chin, indicating that she agreed. Thus, the upper echelons of the Loki clan fell into silence again, and looked at AIC as if there were sparks in their eyes, which made AIC a little timid. The first to speak was Riveria. What kind of person do you think that person is? AIC pondered for a moment, and after a while, said concisely. A very powerful, and very mysterious person. The second to speak was Gareth. What kind of person do you think that person is to you? AIC was startled, then lowered her head, as if she was asking her own heart, and said this sentence. He's very good to me. The third one to speak was Tiona, who raised her arm high. Compared to us, who do you think is more important, us or that person? A trace of awkwardness appeared on AIC's pretty face, as if she really didn't know how to answer. I don't know. The fourth to speak was Tyogny. Do you think it's worth being happy if you can be with that person all day long? AIC's mind involuntarily began to imagine such a scene. Unknowingly, her emotionless face began to relax as she answered almost instinctively. I think I'll be very happy. The fifth to speak was Rafia. If that person invited Miss AIC to join his clan, would Miss AIC agree? AIC hesitated for a moment before replying with a somewhat determined tone. I won't agree. Then, let me ask you a question too. Finn looked at AIC as if he wanted to conclude. AIC, haven't you realized that that person already holds a very high position in your heart? AIC was stunned on the spot. Not only does he treat you well, but compared to us who are with you all day long, you said you don't know which side is more important. This means that he's at least on the same level as us in your heart, right? Finn smiled bitterly. And yet, you wish to be with him all the time. You might even hesitate when he tries to persuade you to join another clan. Furthermore, he has the power, prowess, and mystery that you look forward to. Is there a need to explain how much such a person holds in your heart? AIC was at a loss. Looking at AIC's reaction, even the stiff Loki sighed and his expression became a little serious. Then let me ask you a question too. AIC raised her head and looked at Loki. Hey, AIC, Loki said very seriously. That person is Noah, right? AIC held her breath as if the biggest secret in her heart had been exposed. She was at a loss of what to do. Under such circumstances, Bert seemed to have been provoked by something. He glared at AIC and finally said the most crucial sentence. I say, don't tell me you like that kid. Like? AIC was stunned. This word seemed to have some kind of unimaginable magical power. As soon as it entered AIC's heart, it was like a huge rock that stirred up waves and caused her heartbeat to accelerate rapidly. AIC unconsciously held her chest and listened to her accelerated heartbeat. She didn't know if it was because she couldn't believe it or because she didn't want to admit it. I like him. At this moment, the emotions that filled AIC's heart were like an expanding airflow that made her feel a little uncomfortable. However, AIC didn't feel any pain towards this uncomfortable feeling. Instead, she felt all kinds of emotions surging. Sour. Sweet. Bitter. Spicy. Complicated emotions filled AIC's heart and made her feel like she didn't recognize herself anymore. Looking at AIC's dazed expression, everyone seemed to have understood what was going on and exchanged looks with each other. Miss AIC really likes Mr. Noah. Leafia was a little disappointed as though the person she yearned for was snatched away by someone else. I knew it. There's definitely something going on between AIC and little big brother. I didn't expect AIC to have reached this age. Life is really unpredictable. Tiona and Tiona were excited while the other lamented. It actually developed to this extent. Riveria felt a little helpless. This is really interesting. When exactly did it become like this? Gareth seemed to be interested. Only Finn's expression was filled with helplessness and seriousness. He glanced at Rocky and spread his hands apart. A cadre of a clan tribe falling in love with a member of another clan tribe. That's really something that isn't funny, Finn said to Rocky. It all depends on how the Overlord sees this matter. What else can he see? Rocky glared at Finn and said with gritted teeth. Even if it's that little guy, he won't be able to snatch away my most beloved AIC, unless... Finn raised his brows and asked. Unless what? Unless that little fellow is willing to consider leaving that shorty's clan. Loki's eyes turned slightly. If he can join my clan tribe, then I'll consider it. Is that so? Finn looked at Loki meaningfully and smiled. Seems like you value that man a lot too. After all, if it was Rocky in the past, anyone who dared to have designs on AIC wouldn't even think about it. But now, Rocky said that he would consider it, which was enough to show how much he valued Noah. Unfortunately, that little guy won't be able to come to our clan tribe. Rocky pursed his lips and said with either jealousy or envy. I can see that my conditions are the same as that shorty's. To that little guy, whether our clan tribe is good or not doesn't matter at all, because we can't give him what he wants. Indeed. Finn couldn't help but sigh. He has too many miraculous methods that we don't have, and he doesn't care for what we do have. There's nothing more depressing than this. So, what's the situation now? Riveria interjected. You're not going to interfere with AIC's relationship. I'm not going to interfere. Finn's face showed an innocent smile that matched his appearance. After all, I quite admire that man who even made AIC's heart flutter. As long as that little guy stays with that poor shorty, I won't agree. Rocky snorted coldly. Don't think I'll compromise so easily. The other girls began to surround AIC and chatter non-stop, but they didn't attract AIC's attention. That was because AIC was still there and didn't react for a long time. Chapter 1998. When people were focused on something, time always passed very quickly. Not long after, the curtain of night fell on Eulalia. Eulalia was once again a city lit up by magic stone lamps. The unique hustle and bustle of the labyrinth city reappeared. Noah's figure slowly appeared at the corner of the southeast street of Eulalia. Noah looked at the street illuminated by peach-colored lights. It was filled with scantily clad prostitutes and men who came to seek pleasure. He touched the money pouch in his arms and couldn't help but laugh. Perhaps I'm the only one who can apply for funding from the clan tribe when coming to Happy Street to have fun. During the day, when Noah said that he wanted to visit Pleasure Street, Hestia went berserk as expected. Unfortunately, the young goddess Rampage came and went quickly. To be more precise, it should be said that they were suppressed very quickly. Noah didn't give Hestia a chance to go berserk as he directly knocked her on the head. After that, he calmly told Hestia that he just wanted to explore the situation and see if he could find any clues. Noah was quite curious about the mysterious method that the Volpera girl used to increase her power. Moreover, after what happened in the dungeon, Noah felt that he had to make a trip here. After all, apart from being curious about the Volpera girl, Noah was also curious about another matter. After explaining the whole situation to Hestia, although she didn't go berserk again, she still couldn't agree to it. As a virgin goddess, how could I agree to let my child wander around? It wasn't unreasonable for Hestia to make such a ruckus. However, there was something wrong with what Hestia said later. What if you suddenly become interested in that kind of place? Wouldn't Ista get her way? I definitely won't agree to it. In the end, in order to prove himself, Noah forcefully suppressed Hestia and even brazenly took out the 280,000 Varus that Belle and Lily earned in one day. Gathering information about other clans is considered a clan activity. It's not too much to ask for funds, right? Noah took out the money under Belle's admiring gaze and Lily's twitching expression. 280,000 Varus. That should be enough, right? If Mira and Lisanna find out. At that thought, the smile on Noah's face gradually disappeared. He felt a little guilty. I'm not really here to flirt. So, Mira and Lisanna should forgive me, right? Noah muttered to himself. Then, he laughed bitterly and patted his cheeks. Then, he lifted his feet and walked into the hall. On the spacious street filled with prostitutes of all kinds of clothing, almost all the men were seduced into the surrounding buildings and began to squander. Not only was the atmosphere of Pleasure Street very different from other streets, even the style of the buildings was quite different. In this place, there were open-style Japanese houses, as well as stone mansions full of a heavy feeling. The architectural style seemed to encompass the entire world, occupied by brothels, showing a different exotic style. Walking on such a street with the laughter of women beside him, it was an atmosphere that could make any man unconsciously let go of their worries and immerse themselves in it. Noah didn't immerse himself in it. He just strolled along the street. In the end, it was the people around him who were surprised when they saw Noah. Isn't that the tyrant? He actually came to Pleasure Street. Under such discussions, the people around him showed all kinds of reactions. As expected, even if he's a tyrant, he's still a man. That's right. The men's faces showed a smile full of intimacy. I didn't expect that the tyrant would like to come here. If we go over now and take him to play around Pleasure Street as seniors, then maybe there's a way to get the tyrant to join our clan. One by one, the male gods who came to look for women began to have their own ideas. That's the tyrant. Very good, I like this kind of strong and handsome man. On the other hand, the prostitutes were like wolf dogs that had their eyes on meat buns. Their gazes on Noah were so scorching that they could burn one's skin. Under such circumstances, one by one, people with ulterior motives began to approach Noah. However, at this moment, Noah stopped in his tracks, lifted his head, and curled the corners of his lips into an imperceptible arc. Soon after, Noah slowly lifted his leg and stomped on the ground below his feet. Dong! Following a thunder-like explosion, a terrible impact fell heavily on the ground, causing the ground to suddenly shake. With Noah's foot as the center, the ground suddenly exploded. Cracks suddenly spread out, raising waves of broken stones and debris. In the blink of an eye, it became densely packed like a spider web. Whoa! Whoa! What? Amidst the exclamations, the people around couldn't help but start to sway under the tremors of the ground. They almost fell directly to the ground. When the commotion subsided, everyone stared dumbfoundedly at Noah, who had stomped on the ground. For a long time, no one reacted. The whole place suddenly became quiet. Looking at the stunned men and women, Noah curled his lips and smiled. He took out a heavy money bag from his arms and threw it on the ground. The pouch full of gold coins fell to the ground, and the crisp sound echoed throughout the silent streets and alleys. Then, Noah finally opened his mouth. I'm not interested in those ordinary women. If you want to satisfy me, at least give me a woman with some strength. Don't let me have my fill, and you'll be the first to collapse. As Noah declared, he looked around and pointed at the money bag on the ground. Whoever can satisfy my request and let me buy her for a night, this money will all be hers. With one sentence, the surrounding atmosphere completely changed. Damn! So domineering. This is the first time I've seen someone who came to have fun be so handsome to this extent. It's really unreasonable. I can't take it anymore. I'm going to become his fan. The men and the Prince Charming all shouted. As for the women who were prostitutes, their eyes almost flashed with love. As expected of the rumored tyrant. It's too wild. I like this kind of man. For the prostitutes, a man who was wild and generous was undoubtedly the best prey. Therefore, the surrounding prostitutes looked at Noah with eyes that were about to burn with fire. That was called scorching. After a while, one of the prostitutes seemed to be unable to hold back and stepped forward, in front of Noah. Then let me see if the rumored tyrant really has the ability to make us collapse before we've had our fill. The prostitute who was shouting like this did not even report her name. Because the battle lasted for less than a second. Bang! Accompanied by a muffled sound, the scantily clad prostitute was sent flying. After rolling on the ground a few times, she immediately stopped moving. All right. Noah acted as if he did not see anything and said faintly. Next. The men and the Prince Charming all looked at the unconscious prostitute and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. On the other hand, the prostitutes widened their eyes and looked at Noah with even more fervent gazes. He's really strong, he's so barbaric. I really want to know what he's going to do in bed. Unfortunately, we don't have the chance. Yeah, the prostitutes were excited and helpless as they discussed. However, if we can satisfy a tyrant and become a regular here, maybe we can have a taste in the future. That's right. We can't let him go. We must make him stay and satisfy him. Quick! Go and get those battle prostitutes from Ista's family to come here. The group of prostitutes fell into a commotion. Some stayed to watch Noah, and some went to the deepest part of Happy Street to inform the battle prostitutes from Ista's family. Seeing this scene, the corner of Noah's mouth rose again. The show had just begun. Chapter 1999. At the same time, on the open-air balcony on the top floor of the base camp of Ishta's clan tribe, Ishta, who was lying on the bench, listened to the young man's report. She raised her hand and took a puff of smoke from a pipe. As expected, she began to mutter to herself. Sure enough, he refused. But it makes sense. He's such an excellent child. Even the strongest clan has to treat him like a treasure. How could a lowly clan like Hestia's clan let go of him so easily? Then, Mistress Ishta, what should we do? The young man asked in a respectful tone. Should we launch an attack on Hestia's clan? Launch an attack on Hestia's clan? Ishta looked at the young man with a faint smile. Instead of answering the question, she asked another question. In other words, do you have a chance of winning against Tyrant? I don't. The young man was a little speechless. But, no matter what, the opponent is only one person. If we use all of our clan and that, it should be easy to take down an adventurer, right? Hearing this, the beautiful goddess just stood there silently smoking and exhaling smoke, causing the surrounding air to become a little heavy. The young man didn't know what his overgod was thinking. He could only lower his head and couldn't say a word. Under such circumstances, time passed bit by bit at an unbearably slow rate. At this moment, Ishta noticed something strange. Mistress Ishta. The young man asked in a strange tone. What's wrong? Don't you feel it? Ishta slightly raised her eyebrows and said slowly. It seems like there's a commotion. A commotion. The young man finally noticed something strange. Looking at the happy street in the distance through the balcony, a different kind of noise and clamor seemed to be going on. Looking at this scene, Ishta's beautiful brows furrowed deeper and deeper. Finally, she couldn't ignore it anymore. She stood up and walked out of the balcony. She even walked out of her luxurious and vast room. Following the wide corridor that looked like the interior of a chalk castle, Ishta walked into her palace. Then, she walked down the stairs at the end of the corridor and went all the way down to the hall on the first floor. This was a hall that looked like a ballroom. The first thing they saw when they entered was an extremely luxuriously decorated hall. There was a flight of stairs on the left and right sides of the palace. They followed the walls and extended upwards, forming a corridor right in front of the entrance of the palace. In the cloister, Ishta walked out with her entourage. She came to the front of the railing and looked down at the hall. At this time, in the hall, a group of provocatively dressed Amazons were making a ruckus. Aisha, who was the leader, stood to the side as if she was in deep thought. Looking at the noise below, Ishta raised the pipe in her hand and knocked on the railing. The crisp sound of dang dang echoed throughout the hall. At this moment, all the noisy Amazons below seemed to have been strangled, and their voices stopped abruptly. The noisy scene instantly returned to silence. All the Amazons, including Aisha, raised their heads and looked at the corridor above. Under the gaze of all the prostitutes present, Ishta asked straightforwardly. Why is it so noisy? The group of prostitutes suddenly looked at each other, and then their eyes gathered on Aisha. Aisha also raised her eyes, looked at Ishta above, and explained the situation. I heard that the tyrant seemed to have come to Happy Street and claimed that he wanted to buy a woman with some strength for a night. To satisfy his desire, he set up an arena in the middle of Happy Street. Tyrant. Ishta's beautiful eyes suddenly lit up, and then she laughed. I didn't expect that child to come to me. The group of battle whores immediately started to clamor again. Even if it's the rumored tyrant, he is still a man. As a man, it's impossible for him not to come to Happy Street to find pleasure, right? I just don't know what the rumored tyrant tastes like. You still want to taste it? It's not even your turn. All of a sudden, the group of prostitutes became like shrews in the market, chattering non-stop. It's just like what you saw, Mistress Ishta. Aisha shrugged. The sisters here are planning to take a bite of the tyrant, that's why it's so noisy. It is indeed a fat piece of meat. Ishta smiled sweetly and then said this. If that's the case, I'll go and see. What? The prostitutes suddenly became more noisy. Mistress Ishta also plans to go. It's over, it's really not our turn now. Mistress Ishta is so annoying. She always picks the best one every time and doesn't give us a chance. That's right. Thus the whores grumbled. However, Ishta no longer paid attention to the prostitutes, but with a soul-stirring smile, her eyes were filled with joy. Let me see with my own eyes what's so special about the man that Freya likes. If he managed to get the man who rejected Freya, how wonderful would that beauty's expression be? When she thought of this, Ishta couldn't hold it in anymore. She took her entourage and walked down the stairs. Then, together with the group of combat prostitutes, they marched toward the center of Happy Street. Aisha, who was at the back, lowered her head and thought about something. Her eyes flashed slightly. At the same time, on the top floor of Babel, in a luxurious suite, in front of the wall-like glass window, Freya crossed her slender arms and looked in the direction of Happy Street. Her pair of beautiful eyes slowly narrowed. I didn't expect that child to go there directly. In Freya's eyes, in the direction of Happy Street, the brilliance of the soul was shining like the sun, telling the beauty what the man that occupied her heart was doing. Last time, you were so intimate with the swordswoman, and this time, you went directly to Happy Street. Why do you always look at other women and never look at me? The goddess of beauty and love spat out heartbroken words. Her pitiful tone was enough to arouse any man's desire to protect her. However, the goddess's face had a mesmerizing smile from beginning to end. With one hand on the glass window, she looked at the place where the brilliance of the soul was, and her eyes gradually became infatuated. Immediately, Freya whispered softly. However, it's time for our game to begin. Let me see your handsome side, my most beloved man, bang. In the center of the bustling Happy Street, a heart-wrenching muffled sound once again resounded under the night sky. Under that muffled sound, an unknown number of prostitutes flew out like a cannonball and rolled on the ground. Finally, they were stacked together with a large group of prostitutes. Their heads tilted, and they were completely motionless. It's done, Noah said in a formulaic manner. Next. The surrounding men and women looked at the pile of prostitutes, and then looked at Noah who was standing in the center of the spiderweb-like cracks on the ground. One by one, they all shrunk their necks. How many are there already? There are 20 of them, right? More than that. I'm afraid there are more than 30. What a pity, he couldn't even withstand a single blow from him. As expected of the adventurer with the name Tyrant, he's so violent. The surrounding crowd seemed to treat this game as a festival, and they were all engaged in heated discussions. Especially the male idols who wanted to see the world in chaos, they spread the news, and more people began to gather here. Over time, Happy Street really became like a festival, and it became more and more lively. At this moment, a person shouted. Look! Esta's clan is here. Chapter 2000. In fact, Noah had already noticed the arrival of Ishta's family members before the surrounding people noticed them. Immediately, Noah's gaze turned towards the direction of Ishta's family members. Looking at the enchanting goddess who was surrounded by a group of battle whores, an imperceptible light flashed through his dark and deep eyes. As for the rest of the people, they all stopped making noise, making the whole place that was as lively as a festival a second ago completely silent. Because everyone present, whether male or female, whether human or god, at this moment, had lost the ability to speak. Their expressions and eyes were replaced by dullness. And these people who had fallen into dullness only had one woman in their eyes. That was Ishta, who was surrounded by a group of battle whores. Undoubtedly, she didn't have a powerful aura, but her whole body exuded an indescribable charm. Undoubtedly, she didn't have any strange power, but she captured everyone's heart as if it was a matter of course. What the battle whores were supporting wasn't a woman, but beauty itself. The goddess of beauty moved her feet gracefully and charmingly. Under the protection of a group of combat prostitutes, she passed through the crowd and arrived in front of Noah. An indescribable silence pervaded the surroundings. Everyone looked at the goddess in a daze, falling into an intoxication that they couldn't extricate themselves from. However, the goddess didn't look at anyone around her at all. Her eyes were fixed on Noah's body, and a smile slowly spread out on her exquisite and exotic face. When that smile appeared on her face, an unusual sweet fragrance began to spread in the air. Ah, everyone present couldn't help but let out a numb sound, as if they had seen the most incredible miracle in the world. They were completely captivated by the goddess' smile, and their skin began to redden and heat up. Including the battle whores who were supporting Ishta, they all had the same reaction. And everyone's eyes were surprisingly similar. Obsession. Intoxication. Absent-mindedness. Love. In front of the goddess, whether human or god, everyone's mind was taken away. It was as if the goddess was the only one left in the world, and all the fragile souls were attracted to her. As a result, none of the hundreds or thousands of people and gods present made a sound at this moment. They were all immersed in the beauty, and were unable to extricate themselves. Except for one person. Gazing at the smiling goddess like a seductive rose, Noah acted as though he didn't see anything and calmly said, "Are you the next one?" There was no intoxication. There was no infatuation. He was not absent-minded. There was no love. In fact, they didn't even pay attention to him. It was as if Noah was facing an extremely ordinary challenger. With the most casual tone, he spoke these words that seemed extremely abrupt in the deathly silent scene. In a split second, the beautiful smile on Ishta's face froze. In the surroundings, the men and women whose minds had been captured also abruptly regained their senses. It was as if they had just had a good dream, and their faces were filled with reminiscence and bewilderment. The people and gods who knew all the details reacted almost instantly. What had just happened? Charm. Just now, Ishta had used the ability of seduction that only the beauty goddess had. She had taken away everyone's mind in an instant. Only one person ignored Ishta's charm. That was Noah. After Freya, the charm of the second goddess of beauty was also completely ignored by Noah. Understanding the reason, those who knew the details looked at Noah with a different gaze. Especially Ishta, the beautiful smile on her face was faintly replaced by embarrassment, which made the ambiguous atmosphere a second ago become weird. In this regard, Noah just cast a playful look at Ishta, and his tone was like sneering at a naughty child's prank. He spread out his hands. By the way, the goddess of beauty is really the same. One or two of you used the so-called charm on a man you met for the first time. Without that, don't you have the confidence to attract a man's heart? Hearing this, Ishta finally could not maintain her smile. The news that Noah was not charmed by Freya and even rejected the goddess of beauty's courtship had already spread throughout Eulalia. Therefore, Ishta naturally knew about this matter. However, Ishta still used her charm on Noah. The reason was very simple. That bitch can't charm that man, but I can. Doesn't that prove that I'm prettier than her? If this was the case, no one would say that Ishta was inferior to Freya in the future. With this thought in mind, Ishta impulsively used her charm. However, it turned out that there was no difference between Ishta and Freya as goddess of beauty. At least, the charm that could capture the hearts of all living beings was not worth mentioning to Noah. I'm here today to have fun, not to see you show off. Noah glanced at Ishta, his tone without a trace of respect for the goddess. If you want to challenge me, I'll welcome you at any time. But if you want to subdue me with a smile, I'm sorry, you're still lacking a lot of experience. His ruthless words made Ishta's expression turn ugly, and at the same time, it also made the surrounding people speechless. This tyrant, last time he mercilessly rejected Goddess Freya's courtship, is he going to mercilessly drive away Goddess Ishta this time? Those are two goddesses of beauty, how can he do such a thing? Is he really a tyrant with a heart of stone? If that's the case, he wouldn't have come to Happy Street to have fun, idiot. That's true, the surrounding discussions fell into Ishta's ears, and it was more irritating than anything else. It was only at this moment that Ishta was a little angry. He actually rejected me. As a goddess in charge of beauty, Ishta had never experienced the feeling of being rejected by others. Now, Ishta finally had a taste of this feeling. However, unlike Freya who was also rejected, Ishta's heart was only filled with anger. Perhaps this was the reason why there was a difference between Freya and Ishta even though they were both goddesses of beauty. Under the influence of such emotions, Ishta's beautiful face, which was as beautiful as a goddess, put on a fake smile and said, "I've always heard that there's a child in Hestia's clan who's amazing. Now that I've seen it with my own eyes, it really doesn't disappoint. It's a pity that there's no respect for a goddess, that's punishable. It seems that Hestia didn't teach you how to be a proper person. Goddess, you must be joking. My lord always teaches me that if someone is good to me, then I have to be good to them 100 or 1,000 times better. If someone is bad to me, then I don't have to be polite and just knock them down." Noah curled his lips into a smile. "Besides, goddess, are you sure you're not disappointed? Why do I feel like you're very upset?" Ishta's face twitched. She really didn't expect that the man in front of her would be so merciless. His words were full of sarcasm. What's more, the other party was a man. A man who Ishta could manipulate as she pleased in the past. Now, being ridiculed by a man who could manipulate as she pleased in the past, Ishta's feelings were really complicated. She felt like she was experiencing all kinds of emotions. Just as Ishta was about to lose her temper, a loud toad-like laughter rang out. Croak, 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 croak. Even Mistress Ishta was rejected. Sure enough, this old lady is the most beautiful one. Accompanied by this strange loud laughter, a huge body stepped with powerful footsteps that caused the ground to involuntarily tremble as it walked over. When the full appearance of the giant figure was exposed to everyone's eyes almost popped out of their sockets, and their faces immediately turned green. It was none other than Freeney. Chapter 2001. Gwa 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 gwa. Amidst that ear-piercing and unpleasant laughter, the Toad Girls separated the crowd and walked in amidst a series of thumping sounds. No, it wasn't right to say that they were separating the crowd. To be more precise, it should be said that the crowd automatically dispersed as if they had seen a ferocious beast. They fled in panic, and in the blink of an eye, they all fled into the surrounding brothels, hiding completely. It was an expression that others would avoid, but Freeney did not see it at all. This Toad Girl's eyesight was that bad. Therefore, Freeney ignored the disdainful gazes of the battle whores from Ishta's spawn. However, after the interlude with Freeney, the anger in Ishta's heart couldn't help but subside a lot. Although she didn't have the same disdain as the other battle whores, there was a strong sense of impatience in her eyes. "What are you doing here, Freeney? Isn't that obvious?" "Lady Ishta." Freeney grinned. "Didn't they say that there are good men here? Of course I have to come." "Really?" Ishta sneered. "Then do you know who that man is?" "I didn't listen carefully, but those guys all said that he was a good man." "Since he's a good man, then I'm going to be a part of it," Freeney said casually. "Furthermore, I heard that good man even set up an arena, saying that he wanted to find a strong woman to satisfy him. Could it be that there's someone more powerful than me here?" As the only LV5 member of Ishta's clan, Freeney's words were rather convincing. Moreover, even if she wasn't an LV5, looking at her huge body that was more than 2 meters tall, no one would think that Freeney wouldn't be able to satisfy a man. Instead, it was more likely that she would squeeze him dry. So far, countless men had been sucked dry by Freeney. If there was really a man who couldn't get satisfaction from a woman, then he would look for Freeney. The roles would definitely be reversed. But it was a pity that no man would take the initiative to find Freeney. Unless there was a second Toad Man in this world. No, even if he did, he wouldn't be interested in Freeney, right? In the past, if a man had set up an arena in Pleasure Street and said that he would buy a night with the other party if he was satisfied, he would definitely be dragged into the room by Freeney. But this time, Freeney was destined to stumble. Open your eyes. Ishta took a puff of the cigarette and said expressionlessly. Take a good look at who that man is first. Freeney pursed her lips and shifted her gaze to Noah in a non-committal manner. Then, Freeney's enormous face stiffened, and his toad-like eyes bulged out of their sockets. It's you. It's me. Noah narrowed his eyes and smiled. What? You want to get involved too? I won't show you any mercy. You. Why are you here? Freeney exclaimed. Her exclamation was like a roar, causing the surrounding air to tremble. Aren't you not interested in women? This time, it was Noah's mouth that twitched. This self-righteous girl still didn't realize that he was being led by the nose by Aisha's hints. This girl was the leader of Ishta's family. Her looks could even scare away ghosts, but she was a toad-like woman on the outside and a pig on the inside. She was so stupid. However, luring this girl out was also part of Noah's plan. Then, Noah said straightforwardly. Okay, let's not talk about nonsense. Who wants to challenge me? As he said this, Noah extended his foot and picked up the heavy purse on the ground. He took it in his hand and let the pleasant sound of gold coins colliding with each other resound in the surroundings. If I can't find a woman on Pleasure Street that I'm satisfied with, then I'm afraid I'll be disappointed in this place. With that one sentence, the challenge that was originally like entertainment was directly linked to the problem of face. You. Ishta frowned and looked straight at Noah. You're not deliberately looking for trouble with our family tribe, are you? Where did this come from? Noah blinked innocently. I said, I'm just here to have fun. Since you're here to have fun, then there's no need to set up an arena, right? Ishta seemed to want to see through Noah's heart and stared at him. If one woman can't satisfy you, then 2, 3, 4, or even 10 or 20 women will do. Don't you men like this? Oh. Noah raised his eyebrows and smiled. In other words, Miss Ishta thinks any woman can spend a night with me, right? Ishta was suddenly speechless. Indeed, men were a species with a strong desire to conquer. Being able to have sex with multiple women was probably something every man wanted to do. However, men were also creatures with strong self-esteem. Some men would think a woman who had been touched by others many times was dirty. Some men were only interested in certain women. It was hard to say whether it was a fetish or a clean freak. Perhaps, the man in front of her only wanted to be with a strong woman. However, Ishta still thought Noah was deliberately looking for trouble with her family tribe. After all, Ishta was a goddess. Whether the children of the lower realm were lying or not, as a goddess who had lived for God knows how many years and seen how many people, it couldn't be hidden at all. Therefore, Ishta could see that Noah wasn't really here to flirt. This man was definitely here to cause trouble for Ishta's family tribe. But why was that? Did Ishta's family tribe offend Hestia's family tribe? Could it be that the members that were sent to poach him during the day made him unhappy? With that in mind, Ishta couldn't help but blurt out. If you're really here to have fun, then this arena has no meaning to exist at all, right? Oh. Noah replied without changing his expression. Why do you say that? Because everyone knows that in Eulalie, or even in the whole world, there is no one who can beat you in a one-on-one battle, Ishta said. Even Eulalie's ultimate weapon, the only LV-7, can't do anything to you. Who can beat you? After Ishta said that, everyone also reacted. It seemed that this was indeed the case. Undoubtedly, he knew that no one could beat him, but he still deliberately set up an arena. This was simply a challenge. Just as this thought appeared in everyone's mind, Noah smiled again. I didn't say that only by beating me can you get my favor, Noah shrugged. How about this, I'll stand here and don't move. As long as someone can make me move, then it's considered my loss. And I'll only use one hand. Whoever can make me use the other hand, then it's also considered my loss. Of course, if someone can injure me, then it's even better. Is this okay? As soon as this came out, everyone was stunned. Stand still. Using only one hand. If it was another occasion, others would definitely think that Noah was arrogant and conceited, simply arrogant to the extreme. However, in this place, Noah came to have fun, not to win, but to lose. If that was the case, it was reasonable to set up these conditions. This time, even Ishta started to doubt herself. Was this man really here to have fun and not to challenge her? While Ishta was still lost in her thoughts, Franny had already called out impatiently. All right. Then let this old lady do it. Franny said as she looked at Noah with eyes full of greed. It was obvious that this idiot thought that she would definitely win under these conditions and could taste the rumored tyrant. In response, Noah smiled as if he was not surprised. I don't care. Ishta stared at Noah's face, trying to see something from it. Mistress Ishta, Franny was a little impatient. Ishta could only curse him in her heart. Then she waved her hand to show that she agreed. Seeing this, Noah raised the corner of his mouth. Chapter 2002. Boom! With a resounding thud, Franny took a heavy step forward. Her eyes were bloodshot, and the corners of her mouth were cracked so wide that they almost reached her ears. Combined with her toad-like face, she gave off a very terrifying feeling. However, in the surrounding brothels, people and gods still poked their heads out from the doors, windows, and various cracks. Their eyes were full of curiosity. It was not only the people present. Unknowingly, the surrounding buildings were almost full of people and gods. Although Friuli's disgusting appearance and narcissistic attitude were not complimentary, in terms of excitement, the confrontation in front of them was indeed worth watching. On one side was the tyrant. On the other side was the man-killer. On the other side was an existence that could even be compared to level 7. On the other side was a genuine level 5 battle whore. If it was under equal conditions, then certainly no one would think that the former would lose to the latter. After all, Noah was the only level 7 existence who had fought against Eulalie in public. He was also the strongest person who annihilated Apollo's clan alone. If it was only level 5, against such a person, it was not worth watching at all. However, in the case of Noah making a huge concession, it was a different story. Anyway, it's good to be able to fight well. This was the most loyal thought of those gods and adventurers who wanted to see the world in chaos. However, under such circumstances, it did not take long for many people to curse. Too despicable. Yes. Too despicable. Not only did Noah make a promise that even if he lost, he would only use one hand in the battle. But what about Noah's opponent? This person was taking a huge battle axe from the hands of the two battle whore next to him. The battle axe model was almost the same as Friuli's body, nearly 2 meters in length. The blade was extremely wide, and the blade was unusually sharp. At a glance, it could be seen that it was an absolute masterpiece. Even if it was not a level 1 weapon used by level 1 adventurers, it was at least a level 2 weapon. In the face of such a weapon of mass destruction, one could neither dodge nor use both hands to fight. Anyone with a discerning eye could see the advantages and disadvantages. And if he were to fight with his bare hands, it would be equivalent to courting death. They've already made such a huge concession, yet they're still using such a weapon. Isn't this too damaging to the reputation of a LV5 Level 1 adventurer? That's right. Many gods began to feel indignant, but even more of them were gloating over the misfortune of others. Ista, who knew what kind of conduct those gods had, naturally didn't care. At the same time, she didn't express any dissatisfaction with Friolini carrying such a huge battle axe. She only looked at Noah, smiled sweetly, and pretended to be kind. You don't seem to be carrying any weapons. Is that okay? There's nothing wrong with that, right? Noah glanced at Friolini, who was carrying a huge battle axe. He was not frightened by the opponent's exaggerated size and weapon, and was still as relaxed as ever. Besides, no one would carry a weapon while having fun, right? That's true. Ishta's face was full of smiles. In that case, do you need me to prepare a weapon for you? No need. Noah suddenly smiled. Anyway, it's just a game. It won't take too much time. The implication was that even if he made such a big concession, didn't have a weapon, and the opponent was a LV5 Level 1 adventurer, for Noah, it was still just a game. Tyrant is tyrant. His tone is really arrogant. Ishta's heart began to become ruthless. In that case, Friolini, you don't have to be merciful. Don't let him down. Of course, I won't let go of any opportunity. Friolini stared closely at Noah, stuck out her big tongue, licked the corner of her mouth, and looked as if she was drooling, which disgusted the people around. Including Noah, he had also reached the limit of his patience with this disgusting toad girl. Although the development so far had been within Noah's calculations, and Friolini's appearance could also be said to be Noah's plan, but when faced with this stupid, ignorant, and disgusting toad girl, Noah would be lying if he said that he didn't feel disgusted. Of course, that was not because Noah judged people by their appearance. Even if he didn't look at this toad girl's appearance, no one would like her. After all, there were many people who were squeezed into jerky by this man-killer, directly becoming a cripple, and even losing their precious lives. It was not wrong to look ugly, but it was definitely wrong to have an ugly heart. Therefore, Noah said with a calm face. Okay, let's start quickly. I don't want to see your orc face anymore. Orc? Friolini was slightly startled and frowned. When did I become an orc? I'm an Amazon battle whore. Is that so? Noah smiled, his expression revealing a trace of sarcasm. Then I'm sorry, I recognized you wrongly. I thought there was a new type of toad man among the orcs. Toad. Toad man. Friolini's expression froze. The people in the surroundings were taken aback. Then, they burst into laughter, including the battle whores of Ishta's clan. Ha 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 ha. Well said. Looking closely, it really does look like one. That's right. How can a battle whore look like that? I also think there must be a new type of orc. Toad. Toad man. Pfft. I can't take it anymore. I'm laughing so hard that my stomach hurts. At this moment, even Ishta couldn't help but curl the corners of her mouth, finding it funny. The laughter that came from all directions caused Friolini's face to twitch. In the end, she let out an angry roar. What are you laughing at? The surrounding laughter came to an abrupt end. And yet, Friolini had actually said such words. Not only are you all jealous of my beauty, but you're also ganging up to ostracize me. I won't be so easily fooled. Friolini coldly snorted and stared at Noah with a murderous look in her eyes. And you, don't think that I'll be moved by your words. Others might be afraid of a tyrant like you, but I'm not. Let's see how you'll win against me in this situation. Friolini immediately let out a tiger-like roar, tightly gripping the large battle axe in her hand. Her entire body erupted with an incomparably powerful aura, causing the surrounding air to stagnate. Gwa 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 gwa. Freeney laughed out loud as she stomped on the ground. With a heavy thud, her gigantic body transformed into a deadly cannonball as she violently charged towards Noah, who was almost within reach of her. He closed the distance in the blink of an eye. Whoosh! In the next moment, Freeney suddenly raised the battle axe in her hand. When she was only half a foot away from Noah, the battle axe in her hand abruptly swung downwards, carrying with it a sharp enough energy to pierce the skin of a person. It viciously chopped down towards Noah's head. The moment the wind blew, Noah's robes fluttered from the force of the battle axe under the huge battle axe, undulating up and down. The blade of the battle axe flickered with a cold light, telling everyone that the battle axe was not a toy, but a genuine high-grade weapon. On one side was a gigantic Amazon wielding a battle axe. On the other side was a bare-handed human who could not dodge or use both hands. No matter what, in the eyes of an outsider, the situation before them could be said to be very different. However, the one who was at a disadvantage was not the human youth whose robes fluttered under the battle axe, but the Amazon who was roaring and swinging down with the battle axe. Looking at the gigantic battle axe chopping down, Noah only raised one hand unhurriedly. Clang! Accompanied by a bell-like sound, a circle of strong wind with Noah and Freeney as the center suddenly vibrated and swept across the entire field. The strong wind blew the surrounding crowd to the point that they could not help but close their eyes. When they opened their eyes again, everyone in the crowd suddenly widened their eyes, their faces full of disbelief. Chapter 2003. No. No way, right? At this moment, all the onlookers were dumbfounded as they watched the scene unfold in the center of the field. Not to mention the onlookers, even the people of Ista's clan were caught in shock and couldn't react for a while. Especially Freyne herself, she was completely stunned. From her body shape, one could tell what Freyne was good at. Among the 5 basic abilities of strength, durability, dexterity, agility, and magic, Freyne was best at strength, followed by durability. Although Freyne's strength hadn't reached the highest level of S stage, but a LV-5 adventurer with a high strength, coupled with a full blow of a LV-1 weapon, could easily crush solid rock and solid steel. As a result, such a blow was easily neutralized by Noah. With a single finger. Noah, by just raising a finger, blocked Freyne's full blow of the battle axe. That scene made everyone in the audience fall into a state of amazement, and then one by one, they all trembled. That guy's durability is actually high to such an extent. Obviously, everyone in the audience attributed this incredible scene to Noah's durability above normal. But they didn't know that the reason why Noah could directly block that huge battle axe with his body wasn't because of the durability basic ability, but because of Noah himself. There was only one reason why he could so easily block that huge battle axe's blow. That was the existence of the 3rd perpetual motion machine's soul, eternal enhancement. Unlike before when he used enhancement magic, now, Noah's enhancement was comprehensive from the inside out. In the past, when Noah used enhancement magic, it was applied to the arm to enhance the arm strength, and applied to the legs to enhance the leg strength. The enhancement aspects were separated. After all, the effect of enhancement magic was originally to specialize the existence of the target. If the target was a light bulb, then it was to enhance the brightness. If the target was a fan, then it was to enhance the wind. If the target was a rock, then it would strengthen the hardness. If the target was a sword, then it would be a sharpness enhancement. Therefore, when Noah used strengthening magic, he almost always used it on his hands and feet to strengthen his arms and legs. Sometimes, he would also cast it on his eyes to increase his vision. Other than that, he rarely used it on other places. After applying the enhancement spell to his body using a fixed magic array, the target of the enhancement spell was no longer just his limbs and facial features, but Noah's entire body. His arm strength had increased. His leg strength had increased. His 5 senses were enhanced. Even his internal organs and lungs had been strengthened. It was a complete and comprehensive strengthening. Of course, the hardness and toughness of Noah's bones, flesh, and skin had also been strengthened. Once Noah entered combat mode, his entire body tensed up. Even sharp weapons would find it difficult to leave a single wound on his body. Even though the battle axe in Frey's hand was not a normal weapon, but a Tier 1 weapon used by Level 1 adventurers, its sharpness and hardness were comparable to the Moon World's Noble Phantasm. However, without a Tier B Noble Phantasm, it would still be difficult to leave a single wound on Noah's body. Of course, Noah wouldn't explain all this to the onlookers for no reason. Noah only looked at Frey's dumbstruck toad-like face and sighed in disappointment. Is that all? Is that all? A Level 1 adventurer who was unreachable in the eyes of others received such an evaluation from Noah. Open. Open. Frey's face was distorted. What kind of joke is this? With a furious roar, Freyny seemed to have gone berserk. Her short toad-like arms tightly gripped the enormous battle axe as she swung it at Noah like a storm. Clang 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 clang. Following a series of crisp sounds, Frey's wild swings were all easily blocked by Noah. He still used a single finger. Noah was like an elegant conductor of music. He raised his hand and raised his finger. With a speed so fast that only afterimages could be seen, he continuously raised his arm and used that single finger to block Frey's storm-like attacks one by one. The collision between the huge battle axe and the frail finger was like a collision between steel and steel. The sound of metal clashing could be heard incessantly. Seeing Frey frantically swinging her battle axe, Noah leisurely blocked her attacks one by one. At the same time, he seemed to be deliberately provoking his opponent and spoke as if nothing had happened. I say, why didn't you use the LV6 strength that you displayed in the dungeon? There's no benefit in going easy on me. While saying this, Noah suddenly raised his hand and flicked the blade of the battle axe that was slashing towards him. Clang clang. The battle axe that came crashing down like an avalanche was suddenly deflected by a flick of his finger. It actually caused a burst of sparks that scattered in all directions. Frey only felt a terrifying force violently jolt her back. She was forced to retreat several steps in the midst of a series of footsteps. Bah! Bastard! Frey was unable to restrain her anger. I don't believe it. With a furious roar, Frey once again pressed forward. Her entire body was like a meteorite as she charged forward with the momentum of a rampaging war chariot. In response, Noah only watched with narrowed eyes. His body remained motionless as he gently raised his hand and raised his finger. Whoosh! The storm-like slash came crashing down like a waterfall. Clang! The axe strike, which was powerful enough to shatter a human body, was deflected by the firm fingers as usual, causing a crisp sound to ring out. Huff, 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 huff. The battle axes were like a meat grinder, swinging crazily from all directions. Clang, 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 clang. The axe could easily shatter rocks, but in return, it was always the same sound of collision. Every time they collided, intense sparks would erupt from the point of collision. Every time he attacked or defended, the air around him would be slightly disrupted, and a strong wind would be stirred up. One side had given up on all defenses and attacked continuously as if they had gone mad. At the same time, he focused on blocking the incoming attacks and continuously flicked away the incoming battle axes with single-minded focus. Coupled with the difference in size and weapons, it looked like a battle between a giant monster and a tiny ant. However, the battle was progressing without any suspense for the latter. The onlookers who had gradually recovered from their astonishment burst into extremely enthusiastic cheers one by one. The unexpected scene made all the people and gods seem to be ignited and completely excited. Seeing that Noah was in the storm of slashes that could almost kill a person hundreds of times, but he never took a step back. With the power of one finger, he deflected the storm-like axe strikes one by one. Everyone was cheering for him generously. Only the battle whores of Ishta's clan were all panicking. No way. Did he really fight against a LV5 level 1 adventurer with just one finger? That tyrant is actually this strong. Not to mention the battle whores, even Aisha, who had been silent and thinking about something, was stunned. Only Ishta clenched her teeth. That kid is really looking for trouble. If it went on like this, by this time tomorrow, all the people in Eulalia would know that a LV5 head of Eulalia's family couldn't even deal with one finger of the enemy. At that time, Noah's name would undoubtedly resound, but Ishta's clan would only become Noah's stepping stone. If that really happened, how would she be made fun of by the jealous goddess? I will never allow that kind of thing. Ishta took a deep breath and calmly said to Aisha. Aisha, get ready immediately. Aisha almost immediately understood Ishta's plan. She didn't say anything and just silently retreated. About a minute later, a burst of light particles suddenly appeared in the air. Seeing this, Noah was not surprised but happy. Finally. Chapter 2004. Wang. When the air suddenly trembled and a burst of light particles abruptly appeared on the scene, the surrounding crowd who were cheering enthusiastically were all stunned. Noah, on the other hand, showed a serious expression for the first time since the start of the match. Upon closer inspection, he discovered that the light particles that had suddenly appeared were gradually condensing into a vortex of light that resembled a magic array. The whirlpool of light looked like a hammer without a handle. It hovered high above Freeney's head, shining with resplendent radiance. At this moment, Noah fully unfolded his sensing ability, enveloping the surrounding area. Then, Noah clearly felt it. In an Eastern-style brothel nearby, a wave of faint fluctuations gradually spread out. Is it there? While Noah stared closely at the Eastern-style building, the luminous mallet suspended above Franey's head suddenly descended and struck Franey's body. In the next moment, the light particles on the hammer transformed into a torrent, enveloping Franey's entire body. Roar, roar, roar. Freeney let out a furious roar, and his aura suddenly swelled, creating a powerful gale that attacked the surroundings like a shockwave. Seeing Freeney's sudden outburst, the surrounding onlookers were all shocked. There's still a godly twist in this situation. I like this development. Could it be that the Toad Girl is going to show her might next? Then the tyrant will meet his tragic end here. Do you have to do this? In the crowd of onlookers, a group of Prince Charming with advanced thinking became excited and shouted loudly in a language that no one could understand. This old lady has obtained this power again. If you have the guts, try and take this old lady's attack with your finger again. Only at this moment did Freeney burst forth with a strength comparable to that of a LV6. The aura swept across the surroundings like a gale, causing the sand and dust on the ground to be swept up and blown in all directions. Unfortunately, Freeney did not know. Whether it was LV5 or LV6, in the eyes of others, there might be a big difference, but in Noah's eyes, there was not much difference. The reason why Noah hadn't dealt with Freeney so cleanly was because he hadn't achieved his goal. Now, Friolini was of no use. Did no one tell you? Noah's gaze landed on Freeney as if he was looking at something dirty. A cold light finally appeared in his eyes. You're too noisy. Suddenly, a complex and mysterious magic array appeared before Noah. Dense mana gathered within the magic array, and it radiated a dazzling light. The light gathered at the center of the magic array and transformed into a dazzling beam of light. It shot through the air in a flash, heading straight for Freeney. Freeney didn't even have time to react before the dazzling beam of light shot towards her and landed heavily in front of her. Dong! With a muffled explosion, the ground that was directly hit shattered into pieces. The astonishing impact set off by the explosion turned into a strong wind that shook Franny's body. Franny suddenly let out a scream, and the sound of bones breaking could be heard from her body. Then, she was blown away by the strong wind, like a ball that was sent flying, and heavily crashed into the wall of a building. Bang! The sound of an explosion rang out. The frail wall was unable to disperse the energy from Frey's body, and it collapsed with a loud bang, shattering into pieces of rubble and burying Frey within. The whole scene suddenly went silent. Witnessing this scene with their own eyes, everyone's mouth formed an O shape. Including those male idols who thought that there was a divine turn of events, all of them opened their eyes wide as if they had been stuffed with durian. As for the battle prostitutes of Ishta's clan, they were all stunned. Paw! Ishta's hand involuntarily clenched, and the expensive pipe was directly crushed. Looking at Franny, who was buried in a pile of rubble and completely motionless, Ishta's heart instantly lost its warmth as if a basin of cold water had been poured over it. No one knew better than Ishta what the scene in front of her represented. Others only thought that Noah easily defeated a LV-5 level 1 adventurer, but Ishta knew that after the upgrade, Franny's strength was equivalent to a LV-6 existence. Such an existence, the strongest battle prostitute of Ishta's clan, was actually defeated by Noah with just a wave of his hand. This child, who was reputed to be comparable to Eulalie's LV-7, was actually able to defeat the strongest commander of Ishta's clan with just one blow. Did that mean that the LV-7 auto of Freya's clan could also do the same thing? Ishta didn't dare to imagine. If that was the case, then how could Ishta's clan fight against Freya's clan? Ishta, who originally thought that she could rely on that to annihilate Freya's clan, had her delusion extinguished, and her beautiful face began to distort. You! Ishta's eyes began to show hatred as she looked at Noah. I'm sorry, Mistress Ishta, I was a little too heavy-handed. Noah looked at Ishta's somewhat hateful eyes, as if he had seen through her thoughts, and smiled meaningfully. However, this will also allow you to have a clearer understanding of your own capabilities. Don't think that you can control the fate of others at will just because you're a god. It's better if you don't let your subordinates poach people from other people's camps with threats and promises in the future. After saying that, Noah ignored Ishta's ugly appearance, but it didn't affect her beauty at all. He reached into his arms, took out the heavy money bag, tossed it, and pretended to sigh. It seems that I won't be satisfied tonight. Well, even if I'm not satisfied, I can't come here in vain. This time, I'll make do with it. After saying that, Noah didn't even look at the battle whores of Ishta's clan. He turned his head and walked towards one of the directions of Happy Street. The surrounding onlookers gave a warm applause, and while sending off Noah, they were also engaged in a heated discussion. What a tyrant, so domineering and strong that he didn't even give face to the goddess of beauty. If he wasn't very strong, this guy would definitely die a horrible death. Unfortunately, his strength is extraordinary. That's why he became handsome. Yeah. What a good show. The gods who liked entertainment began to leave with satisfaction. Together with the surrounding onlookers, they gradually began to disperse. The battle whores left behind by Ishta's clan looked at the trembling Ishta and hurriedly lowered their heads. They were afraid that they would be the target of their lord god's anger. Damn it! Ishta was furious. A mere human. A mere member of a low-level clan. A mere man. Ah! Ishta, who had never been treated like this by a man, was really furious. At the same time, for Ishta, who had always believed that she was the most beautiful goddess and had always firmly grasped the heart of every man, it became an uncontrollable knot that directly penetrated her heart. While Ishta was furious, Aisha looked at the direction Noah left. Her eyes flashed slightly, and she whispered in a low voice. It's actually that direction. Is it a coincidence? Or... At the same time, Noah came in front of a brothel. Looking at the Eastern-style buildings, Noah narrowed his eyes slightly. Is this the place? He had searched high and low for it. The reason why Noah made such a big commotion was to find this place without anyone noticing. If he secretly inquired, it would attract the attention of Ishta's clan. After all, a person who had never been to Pleasure Street secretly inquired about information everywhere. As the clan member who was in charge of the entire Pleasure Street, Ishta would definitely notice it and be vigilant. For this reason, Noah put on a show. He made Ishta think that he was here to look for prostitutes and secretly to challenge the brothel, but in fact, he was here to find the big show. Chapter 2005. In front of God, people in the lower realm could not lie. In this world, such a sentence was simply like a standard, and it was known by all the people in the lower realms. Everyone knew that in front of God, who had existed for a long time, their lives were too short. With such a short life, even if they wanted to cover it up, they would not be able to succeed in front of God. After all, in their long existence, what had God not seen? A mere lie would be seen through without much effort. Therefore, God's ability to see through a person's lie was like the charm of the beauties. It was ingrained into God's instinct and almost became an ability. Therefore, Noah could not guarantee that he could lie in front of Ishta without being seen through. Once Ishta appeared in front of him, even if he told this beautiful goddess that he was here for pleasure, wouldn't he be seen through in an instant? At that time, Ishta would naturally begin to suspect Noah's intentions. Understanding this point, Noah simply beat her at her own game. On the surface, Noah still told Ishta that he was here to look for prostitutes. However, Noah's actions made it seem like he was deliberately looking for trouble. He deliberately came to the Pleasure Street to cause trouble for Ishta's family. In this way, even if Ishta saw through Noah's lie, she would subconsciously think that Noah was here to cause trouble. Little did she know that Noah was also not here to cause trouble, but to inquire about the secrets of Ishta's family. With the excuse of setting up the arena, Noah used it to disturb Ishta and stimulate Ishta's family so that Ishta's family would use the mysterious method of promotion that they used in the underground city. However, in public, Ishta's family would definitely not dare to put the Volpara girl back into the iron box and push her to the scene. That would definitely arouse the suspicions of many gods present. Therefore, Ishta's family could only use that method in secret. At that time, Noah could rely on his superb sensing ability to find the Volpara girl's location. Ishta, who did not know about Noah's ability, would definitely think that he did not know about the Volpara girl's existence. Therefore, Noah could openly use the excuse of seeking pleasure to find the Volpara girl. Everything is going according to plan. Although Ishta is a god, her jealousy is too strong and her weakness is too obvious. If she wants to compete with others in a battle of wits and courage, once her weakness is grasped, she is basically finished. No wonder Freya has been suppressing her. It's not without reason. Noah looked at the Eastern-style buildings in front of him and could not help but feel a trace of anticipation in his heart. All right, young master, I'm here for pleasure. After saying that, Noah stepped into the brothel in front of him. As soon as Noah entered the brothel, an old woman came up to him and warmly entertained him. Perhaps because Noah had caused a stir in Pleasure Street, the old woman seemed to know that the man in front of her was not only powerful, but also extravagant and had a large sum of money to squander. Her enthusiasm was almost unbearable. Noah didn't want to get entangled with the other party and said this directly. "Introduce me to your top prostitute." That day, in the 18th floor of the underground city, although Noah had only taken a few hurried glances at the Volpara girl, he vaguely remembered that she was definitely not bad-looking. With that kind of appearance, it would be unreasonable if she was not the top prostitute in such a brothel. Therefore, Noah said that to make people feel that he was a real brothel patron and not looking for someone with a purpose. As expected, the old woman did not suspect anything and nodded repeatedly. She personally led the way and brought Noah to a room similar to a meditation room. There was an incense burner in the room, filling the air with a refreshing aroma. In the depths of the room, there was a partition. After leading Noah in, the old lady left silently with a smile on her face. Noah was the only one left at the scene. There was also the girl who spoke to Noah from behind the partition. "Welcome, Your Excellency." She had long golden hair that reached her waist. She had fox-like ears and a tail. She was wearing a red kimono. She was around 17 or 18 years old. He had only seen her once, but she looked quite familiar. He had only seen her once, but she looked quite familiar. He had only sensed her once, but he could not forget her aura. Without a doubt, this prostitute was the Volpera girl who had appeared in the 18th floor of the underground city. The Volpera girl sat on the ground in front of Noah and bowed respectfully to him with the most dignified etiquette. "My name is Chuanji. Sir, you can call me Chuanji. Please take care of me." She behaved like a noble's daughter. She behaved like a dignified young lady. The Volpera girl who called herself Chunji looked at Noah just like that, asking so gently with a pure and moving smile that didn't seem like a whore. "Sir, do you want to go to bed now? Or do you want Chuanji to drink with you first? Chuanji can have the servants prepare delicacies and fine wine. Sir, please tell me what to do." Noah didn't say anything when he heard that. Instead, he slowly walked over to the Volpera girl who was sitting on the ground. The Volpera girl called Chuanji instinctively looked up and met Noah's gaze. Looking at this beautiful Volpera girl, many things flashed through Noah's mind. Within the Beastman race, there were many types of Beastmen. For example, werewolves, cat people, canine people, pigmen, and so on. These races that possessed some of the characteristics of wild beasts, in addition to having physiques comparable to wild beasts, also had innate advantages corresponding to their own race. For example, canine people were born with a sensitive sense of smell, which was no different from true canine beasts. Even if they were extremely far away, they could still smell people and find them. Compared to the humans who were born without any physical advantages and only had outstanding intelligence, the orcs were undoubtedly stronger in all aspects. If there were two races that did not receive any favors, one being humans and the other being orcs, the former would generally not be able to defeat the latter. Among this group of orcs, the Volpera race was the most unique existence. This was because the Volpera was the only magical race among the orcs. In other words, the Volpera were born with the talent to learn and use magic, just like the elves. However, the magic used by the Volpera was very different from the magic used by the elves, who were at the top of the magical races. Perhaps it was a little unclear, but to put it bluntly, the power that the Volpera could use should be called demonic arts, which were just classified as magic. The magic that was collectively called demonic arts was also a very rare type of magic. In terms of power alone, perhaps it could not compare to orthodox magic, but almost all of them had unique effects. It was precisely because of this that Noah had reason to believe. This Volpera girl had joined Izda's family and received Izda's favor, which allowed her to discover an extremely rare demonic art. It was this demonic art that allowed this girl named Chun-Ji to obtain magic or skills that could greatly increase one's power, which became the trump card of Izda's family. At this thought, Noah's gaze toward the Volpera girl turned thought-provoking. "Sir." However, Chun-Ji seemed to be unable to endure Noah's undisguised direct gaze. She lowered her head and spoke in a submissive manner. She lowered her head and asked, "Did Chun-Ji do anything wrong to make you unhappy?" Noah still did not reply. Instead, he extended his hand and pinched the Volpera girl's chin, raising her face to look at him. Their gazes met once again. Staring at those deep pitch-black eyes that carried a thought-provoking meaning, Chun-Ji's beautiful face actually turned slightly red, as though she felt embarrassed. She did not look like a daring prostitute at all. Under such circumstances, Noah said frivolously, "Don't you know who I am?" "Sir, you must be an incredible figure," Chun-ji said in a fearful manner. Chun-ji has never been allowed to move freely, so it's inevitable that I'm a little ignorant. If I've offended you in any way, please forgive me. Noah nodded in understanding. Chapter 2006. Now, in the whole of Eulalia, it was really difficult to find a person who didn't know Noah. It could almost be described as impossible. After all, back then, the war game between Noah and Apollo's spawn had been broadcasted live in Eulalia. Everyone and the gods had seen with their own eyes how domineeringly Noah destroyed all of Apollo's spawn, including the city. In the end, he even defeated the leader of Apollo's spawn with his own hands. It was so clean and efficient that it was frightening. Coupled with the incident where Freya's courtship was rejected, Noah's name had spread throughout Eulalia, and it was really difficult to find someone who didn't know him. However, this Volpera girl named Chun-ji was one of them. The reason was that Chun-ji was not allowed to move freely by Ashta's spawn. Presumably, Chun-ji didn't watch the war game between Noah and Apollo's spawn due to the issue of freedom. This wasn't modern society, where every house had a TV to watch the live broadcast. If one wanted to watch the war game between Noah and Apollo's spawn, they could only watch it in places like the guild headquarters, taverns, or the spawn's base camp. Only there would the gods use the only divine power that they were allowed to use to conduct a live broadcast, showing the entire process of the war game in front of everyone. Chun-ji, who was not allowed to move freely, naturally couldn't go to those public places. Even if she knew about Noah's deeds, she wouldn't recognize his face. Understanding this, Noah didn't feel that it was a pity, nor did he find it strange. Noah had more or less guessed that this Volpera girl's freedom was restricted. A guild member who had magic or skills that could greatly increase one's power and become the trump card of the entire spawn was too precious. No one would feel at ease letting her move freely and give others a chance to poach her away. Moreover, Noah could sense that this Volpera girl wasn't very powerful. Leaving such a precious but weak fighting force to wander outside, who knew when it would encounter an accident and die? That would be too much of a pity. For that, it wasn't strange that the spawn restricted Chun-ji's freedom. Noah was just curious. He was curious as to what Chun-ji's method of increasing the strength of others was. With that thought in mind, Noah also glanced at Chun-ji's back. Chun-ji's ability value was there. If only he could take a look. Thinking of this, Noah hesitated for a moment. In the end, he still wanted to see for himself. There will be plenty of time to taste the delicacies and fine wine later. As if he was toying with the girl's delicate and cute face, Noah used his finger to stroke Chun-ji's chin while speaking with the same frivolous attitude as before. But before that, how about you take off your clothes first? Take off my clothes. Chun-ji's pretty face was stunned as she spoke with extreme uncertainty. Here. That's right, it's here. Noah smiled. What? Do you have a problem? No. Nothing. Chun-ji lowered her head. The tail behind her back seemed to indicate the nervousness in her master's heart as it trembled slightly. Since Sir has instructed, then Chun-ji. Chun-ji can only obey. As she said that, Chun-ji's cheeks were dyed pink. She moved her arms slightly, and a corner of the loose kimono slipped down, revealing her slender and smooth shoulders. Just like this, Chun-ji's seductive movements could be called undressing, slowly taking off her clothes. The fair skin was imprinted in Noah's eyes, causing Noah to rub his nose and laugh bitterly in his heart. If it were someone else, Noah would definitely not be so straightforward and rude. However, since the target was a prostitute, there shouldn't be any problem with this level, right? Besides, Noah wasn't the kind of person who was anxious for sex, and he didn't have any evil thoughts in his heart. Moreover, it wasn't like he hadn't seen Alien's body before, so why would he feel guilty? With this thought in mind, coupled with the fact that Noah was pretending to be a prostitute, instead of probing, it was better to be more direct so as not to arouse suspicion. Of course, Noah felt that even so, he most likely wouldn't be able to do as he wished. Then, Chun-Ji's kimono slipped down from her delicate body, revealing most of her skin, including her plump upper body, in front of Noah's eyes. At this time, Chun-Ji's face was already extremely red. Looking at Chun-Ji like this, Noah felt a little strange. This girl called Chun-Ji is a little too shy, right? That's right. She was too shy. Undressing in front of others, as a woman, even if she was a prostitute, she would still be shy when she felt shy. Noah could understand this point. However, looking at Chun-Ji's flushed face, it was no longer just a case of shyness. Rather than being shy, it was more like being ashamed. A prostitute actually had such a strong sense of shame, as if it was her first time. It can't be, really her first time, right? In this way, Noah felt a little uneasy. If the other party was a very experienced prostitute, then it would be fine. However, if it was really her first time, then it would be a big problem. Looking at Chun-Ji's blushing face, but still holding back her shame and slowly taking off her clothes, Noah couldn't help it. Of course, it wasn't that he couldn't help but pounce on her, but that he couldn't help but shout for her to stop. Alright, it's fine here. It's fine here. Chun-Ji couldn't help but be stunned. At this time, although Chun-Ji's entire upper body was exposed, her kimono had just slid down to her waist. That was fine. He could do it like this. Chun-Ji was confused. While Chun-Ji was confused, Noah glanced at her back at lightning speed. Chun-Ji's back was smooth and white, with distinct lines that could clearly make people see a different kind of charm. However, being smooth and white also meant that there was nothing on it, including the ability value that Noah wanted to see. Seeing this scene, Noah thought to himself, as expected. Among the adventurers, there were actually quite a few people who wore clothes that exposed their entire back. For example, the more open Amazon girls like Tiona, their entire back could almost be said to be visible at a glance. In this way, could it be that Tiona's ability value could be seen by anyone? Of course not. In fact, at the same time that the ability value was engraved, the gods would also use the divine blood as a guide to add a lock for the person who received the favor. The so-called lock was to hide the ability value, and it couldn't be seen at all. In order to not expose the most important ability value information, the gods developed this method to add a lock to the ability value of the children within the clan. Hesti didn't help Noah to lock his ability value at the beginning because she didn't know about this. Noah was Hestia's first clan member. And Hesti had just ascended to the lower realm not long ago, so it could be said that she was a newcomer. Gods who had just ascended to the lower realm often didn't know about this kind of locking method. Therefore, Hesti didn't help Noah to lock his ability value. When Noah was camping with the girls of Loki's clan on the 18th floor of the underground city, he inadvertently saw that Tiona and Tiona all had their backs exposed, but there was no ability value on them. Out of curiosity, he asked, and as a result, he learned about this matter. And of course, Ishta's clan, which belonged to the top clan in Eulalia, naturally knew about the lock. Chun-Ji's ability value was also locked. Fortunately, in this regard, Noah also prepared a corresponding method. The next step was to use that method. Just as Noah was immersed in such thoughts, a pair of slender jade hands suddenly wrapped around his neck and pulled him to the ground. However, Noah didn't hit the hard ground, but fell into a soft place. Chun-Ji wrapped her arms around Noah's neck, pulled Noah onto her body, and then she fell down. She blushed, closed her eyes, and said timidly, "Please. Please take pity on me." Noah was stunned. After a while, Noah finally reacted. He looked at Chun-Ji, whose face was flushed red and her breathing quickened. She looked like she was at his mercy, and her clothes were half undone. He immediately laughed dryly. I suddenly want to enjoy good wine and delicacies first." Hearing this, Chun-ji opened her eyes. She looked at Noah with tears in her eyes as she spoke. "Are you dissatisfied with Chun-ji, my lord?" "No, no," Noah hurriedly said. "There's absolutely no such thing." "Then you're not used to taking the initiative?" Chun-ji showed a determined expression. "In that case, let Chun-ji dress you up." With that, Chun-ji suddenly turned over and sat on Noah. "Ha!" Noah made a sound that sounded like he had lost his mind. At this time, Chun-ji was already reaching out to Noah's clothes with trembling hands and unbuttoning Noah's clothes. Wait a minute." Noah almost subconsciously tried to stop him. However, at this time, Chun-ji had already unbuttoned Noah's clothes, exposing his upper body. Looking at Noah's broad chest, Chun-ji's eyes suddenly widened, and her beautiful face sunk into an unprecedented red. Then, something that even Noah didn't expect happened. Ugh! Chun-ji's eyes suddenly rolled, and her head drooped. Without any warning, she fainted and fell onto Noah's body. Hugging the girl's soft body and looking at the girl who suddenly fainted, Noah's mouth twitched, and he was speechless. What's the situation now? Chapter 2007. In the room filled with a strange fragrance, Noah carried the fox girl, who was only covered by a red kimono, to the bed and laid her down. Only then did he have time to think about the current situation. Looking at the unconscious fox girl, Noah sighed and muttered to himself. Could it be that she fainted because she was too shy? If that was the case, then Noah really wanted to scream. What kind of prostitute is this? Noah was speechless and helplessly muttered. But this is a good opportunity. Muttering like that, Noah turned his gaze to Chun-ji's back. As the saying goes, mice have their own ways, and snakes have their own paths. While the gods developed a method to lock ability values, some busybodies also developed a method to unlock ability values to reveal the hidden ability values. It was a tool called the unlocking medicine. As long as one dripped it on the back of the person who received the favor and followed the correct steps, then the lock of grace set by the gods could be unlocked. To create this tool, two conditions must be met. 1. The creator must learn the mystery development ability. Without the ability to create miracles, even the most brilliant person would not be able to unlock the lock of grace set by the gods, let alone create the relevant tools. 2. The creator must use the god's blood as the material to create the unlocking medicine. The god's blood was the necessary medium to carve and alter the grace. At the same time, the medium to lock ability values was also the god's blood. In other words, the god's blood was the key needed to carve and alter ability values. Without this key, even if the mystery was trained to the highest level, it would still be impossible to create the unlocking medicine. Of course, because the material was the god's blood, this tool could only be found by chance. Without the god's permission, forcefully unlocking the lock of grace set by the gods was naturally not allowed, and at the same time, it was also an immoral thing to do. After all, it could be said to be an illegal tool used to peek at other people's ability values. Because of this, the unlocking medicine could only be bought in the black market. As for the price, it was even more expensive than the panacea that could instantly heal any injury. Naturally, Noah did not have the time to go to the black market to prepare such an item. Besides, Noah didn't have enough money to buy this kind of item at the moment, so of course, he didn't have the antidote on him. However, Noah did not need the antidote. This was because Noah had already obtained the method to unlock it. When Noah returned to his tribe, he told Hestia about the lock. Hestia then asked her close friend Hephaestus about it. Noah then learned how to lock and unlock the lock from Hestia. Now that he knew how to unlock it, all that was left was to use the god's blood as a medium. Noah didn't have that either. However, Noah had divine power. In the past, Hestia had dripped a drop of God's blood into Noah's body. As a result, the energy contained within was absorbed by Noah. In other words, as long as Noah used his divine power, the effect would be no different from divine blood. The evidence was that Noah had relied on his own ability to help himself update his ability value many times. So, logically speaking, I should also be able to rely on divine power to unlock it. With that, Noah sat on the edge of the bed and helped Chun-Ji up, so that the Volpra girl's back faced him. At the same time, the boundless energy in Noah's body also rotated and turned into a torrent of divine power. Noah mobilized the divine power in his body and gathered it on his fingertip. On Noah's fingertip, a faint halo began to flicker. Just like that, Noah gathered his divine power on his fingertip and pointed it on Chun-Ji's white and smooth back. Suddenly, with Noah's fingertip as the center, a circle of ripples began to reverberate. As if trying to unlock an invisible shackle, Noah's fingertip that gathered divine power drew a line on the ripples. In the next second, the ripples reverberating on Chun-Ji's back suddenly faded. Immediately, a sacred and mysterious pattern tattoo began to emerge on Chun-Ji's back. It's done. Noah's eyes lit up as he stared at the ability value that gradually emerged on Chun-Ji's back and read the sacred text on it. Naharo Sanjo LV. 1 Strength, I, 8, Endurance, I, 32, Dexterity, I, 15, Agility, I, 23, Magic Power, E, 403, Magic, Million Treasure Hammer, Level Up. Limited to 1 target. A certain interval of time is required between 2 activations. Cannot be used on the caster himself. Level Up Magic. Looking at the information displayed by Chun-Ji's ability value, although Noah had already mentally prepared himself, he still couldn't help but be surprised. So it's not an increase in ability value, but a direct increase in level. No wonder Franny's increase was not much or little, it was just 1 level. It turned out that leveling up was the true form of Ishta's family's secret method. This magic, in this world, is basically against the natural order. A magic that could increase one's level. Noah didn't know if this kind of magic had appeared in this world before, and whether it would appear in the future, Noah didn't know either. Noah only knew that the only person who had this kind of magic in this world was the fox girl named Nahara Sanjo. At the very least, Noah had never heard of anyone who possessed a spell that could increase one's level. It was also because of this that Ishta regarded it as a treasure and planned to use it to deal with Freya's family. Its effect could be said to be powerful. If an adventurer of LV6 obtains this magic, then he can directly challenge Eulalie's ultimate weapon. Noah looked at the unconscious Chun-Ji with eyes full of emotion. This girl, once this magic is exposed, I'm afraid she will be crazily fought over by all forces. Even Ishta's family may not be able to protect her. After all, it was a magic that could increase one's level. Even if it was only limited to 1 person and there was a time limit, the importance of this magic was not only that it could be used to increase one's strength, but also that it could allow the target to challenge opponents who were higher than their actual level, obtain better EXP, and even achieve great achievements and then level up. With this magic, it was only a matter of time before a large number of experts could be created, unless the potential of the target had been completely explored, and no matter how much EXP they accumulated, they would not be able to level up again. The owner of such a magic was regarded as a treasure by Ishta's family, who could be regarded as the top of Eulalie's family. The girls of Loki's family were also amazed by this mysterious method. Who wouldn't want to obtain it? Even Noah was starting to have some ideas. If we poached this girl into our family, then, even if there was no Noah, it was only a matter of time before Hestia's family became the top family in Eulalie's family. When he thought that he couldn't stay in this world forever, Hestia's family needed a real trump card that they could rely on. Noah suddenly had a plan in his heart. Just when Noah was thinking about his plan, an extremely abrupt aura appeared in his sensing range. Noah's heart moved. He shrugged his shoulders and calmly added the lock on Chun-Ji's back to hide the ability value. Then, Noah simply didn't do anything. He just kept his disheveled appearance and helped Chun-Ji, who was half undressed, to lie down. As if he was waiting for something, he played with his fingers in boredom. Time passed by like this. Feeling that the aura had come to the surroundings, Noah smiled slightly and said very abruptly, "Don't you want to come out? I won't welcome you." As soon as the voice fell, the whole room fell into silence again. Noah wasn't in a hurry. He just sat there, as if he just remembered now, and leisurely tidied up his clothes. Until a certain moment, outside the window, a tall figure suddenly rushed in and landed in the center of the room. The newcomer turned her eyes to Noah, looked at Noah who was tidying up his clothes, then looked at the half-undressed, unconscious Chun-Ji lying on the bed, and frowned tightly. If it was someone who didn't know, they would definitely be confused by the scene in front of them. They would think that Noah intoxicated the girl, took advantage of her, and finally succeeded. Now it was over, right? Unfortunately, others didn't know the inside story, but how could Aisha not know? The newcomer was Aisha. Chapter 2008. The fragrance that permeated the room seemed to have suddenly become heavy, and it became somewhat uncomfortable. It was because it was affected by the atmosphere. Aisha looked at Chun-Ji. After confirming that nothing happened to her, she secretly let out a sigh of relief. She turned her head and cast her gaze on Noah. She suddenly smiled. "You really came for Chun-Ji. Why do you say that?" Noah said innocently. "I just came here to have fun. Why would I come here specifically for anyone?" "Okay, you can lie to that self-righteous beauty, but you can't lie to me," Aisha said with certainty. "Because, I don't believe that a man who can even reject a beauty would be immersed in a woman from the lower realm. You don't have any evil thoughts when you look at the opposite sex, so your goal is Chun-Ji. No wonder she was known as the battle whore. This woman's strength may not be very high, and she was almost like an ant in Noah's eyes, but in terms of observation and thinking, Aisha was much better than Ishta, who had obvious weaknesses. Therefore, Noah knew that it was useless to hide it. However, Noah didn't show the slightest trace of panic and smiled. "Since you've already seen through my intentions and have come here alone to see me, you shouldn't be trying to expose me, right?" "Of course," Aisha said without hesitation. "I just came to see how you will treat Chun-Ji." Without a doubt, Noah already knew that Chun-Ji was the biggest reliance of Ishta's clan tribe. Facing this Volpara who possessed super powerful magic, what would Noah do? Based on this, Aisha would also treat him differently. "I just wanted to quietly observe from the side, but I didn't expect to be discovered by you," Aisha stared at Noah and said. "However, I believe in you. You will definitely treat Chun-Ji well." "Me? Treat Chun-Ji well?" Noah raised an eyebrow. "What does that mean?" Aisha did not answer Noah's question. Instead, she looked at the unconscious Chun-Ji with pity and sympathy in her eyes. "This child is actually an unfortunate person." "Unfortunate people?" Noah looked at Aisha. "From what you're saying, there seems to be a reason why Chun-Ji would appear here and become a prostitute. If that wasn't the case, do you think a girl who fainted from shyness when she saw a man's body would sell herself here?" Aisha laughed at herself. "Chun-Ji is different from us. We are following our own desires and are willing to be prostitutes here. However, Chun-Ji is not of her own free will." Noah had already expected this. Not because of anything else, but because Chun-Ji's performance was too unlike a prostitute who sold her body. Her innocent appearance could be explained away as a deliberate act. After all, some men liked this kind of thing. Many prostitutes would pretend to be very pure in order to arouse men's desire to conquer. However, that fainting from excessive shame was not something that could be faked. Therefore, it had to be said that Chun-ji was an unqualified prostitute. And all of this proved that there was definitely a reason why Chun-ji would become a prostitute here. This child was born in the Far East. She was originally a descendant of a noble. When she was young, she ate the offerings used to worship the gods. As a result, she was kicked out by her father, who was an official and responsible for serving the gods. Aisha came to Chun-ji's side and gently stroked her face. In fact, it was just the result of a person who happened to be a guest in Chun-ji's house. After seeing Chun-ji, he had malicious intentions and planned to take Chun-ji for himself. Chun-ji was innocent from the beginning to the end. Hearing Aisha's words, Noah couldn't help but turn his eyes to Chun-ji. Although she still looked half-naked, Chun-ji's appearance was very beautiful and pure. She didn't look like a prostitute at all. Moreover, Chun-ji's sleeping posture was also very innocent. Rather than a prostitute, it was better to say that she was a little princess who didn't know anything about the world. After Chun-ji was kicked out of the house, that bastard took Chun-ji as a prisoner, but he was attacked by a monster on the way home with Chun-ji. He left Chun-ji and escaped by himself, Aisha said with contempt. That kind of man, even if he was given to me for free, I wouldn't accompany him. Fortunately, Chun-ji didn't encounter his evil hands. Then what happened? Noah asked. How did Chun-ji survive in front of the monster? A passing thief saved Chun-ji. Aisha sighed. That guy wasn't a good person. He saved Chun-ji just because it was convenient. He sold Chun-ji to Eulalie. As a result, after several twists and turns, Chun-ji was bought by Lady Eulalie and became a member of Eulalie's family. However, that was just the continuation of Chun-ji's misfortune. After joining Eulalie's family, Chun-ji received the grace of the Lord God Eulalie. Her talents were discovered and she obtained the magic named Hammer of Thousand Treasures. Eulalie, who personally discovered this magic that could increase the level of the target, was almost ecstatic. From then on, she watched Chun-ji closely and regarded her as the biggest trump card of her family. After Chun-ji received the grace, it has been a while, but her ability value didn't increase much. Only the proficiency of the basic ability, magic power, increased. She is regarded as a magic tool, Aisha said emotionlessly. Every time the family prepares for a big operation, Chun-ji will be put into an iron box. On the one hand, it is for protection, and on the other hand, it is also for imprisonment. Even when entering the underground city, it is no exception because only in this way can Chun-ji not escape and ensure that Chun-ji won't be killed by monsters. Aisha's words reminded Noah of what happened last time on the 18th floor of the underground city. At that time, Chun-ji was put in an iron box and was carried around like a prop. This child's life is almost full of all kinds of misfortunes. Staying in this family, Chun-ji will never have a future, Aisha said solemnly to Noah. So, I hope you can take Chun-ji and let her leave here. You want me to take Chun-ji away? Noah was really surprised. For Chun-ji, Noah did have some ideas and planned to poach her into his family. However, Noah didn't expect Aisha to ask Noah to take Chun-ji away. Isn't Chun-ji the trump card of your family? Noah frowned deeply. You're willing to let Chun-ji leave? Is it important whether I'm willing or not? Aisha laughed bitterly. The important thing is whether Master Eulalie is willing or not. Then, do you think Eulalie will let Chun-ji go? Noah curled his lips. To be honest, I don't think the goddess, who is filled with boredom and jealousy all day long, will be willing to let go of a trump card that could defeat Freya's family. Then it's the problem you need to solve. Aisha looked at Noah meaningfully and said. The tyrant who once defeated the entire Apollo family by himself. This time, with Eulalie's family as the opponent, I'll wait and see if you can still show that invincible power. Hearing this, Noah was silent. Aisha also became silent, and the atmosphere in the room became heavy. After a while, Noah spoke. "I have 3 questions," Noah said indifferently. "The first question, how do you know I will help you? If you know the true form of Chun-Ji's magic, you will definitely be tempted," Aisha answered directly. "As it turns out, I'm not wrong, right?" The second question. Noah continued as if he didn't hear anything. "Why do you want to send Chun-Ji away even if you have to betray your own family?" "There's no special reason." Aisha was silent for a while, then answered with some disappointment. "I just think that Chun-Ji should live in a different world from us. She shouldn't stay here." The third question. Noah raised his eyes and stared at Aisha. "Why me? Aren't you afraid that Chun-Ji will be treated even more miserably in my place than here? If I say I believe you, you probably won't believe me, right?" Aisha met Noah's gaze and said this directly. "But I still want to say that I will believe you. I believe that a man who is not swayed by the charm of a goddess will never do something that disappoints her." Noah closed his eyes. Chapter 2009. With a soft groan, Chun-Ji gradually regained her consciousness and slowly opened her eyes. Perhaps because she had just woken up, her mind was not particularly clear. Chun-Ji stared blankly at the ceiling and murmured in a low voice. What happened to me?" Her voice was very low and could almost be described as a mosquito. However, in this silent room, no matter how soft the sound was, it would still be very clear. Thus, the second person on the scene clearly heard this sentence and responded. "You were unconscious for about half an hour, right?" When this sentence entered Chun-Ji's ears, Chun-Ji almost reflexively turned her head and looked at the source of the voice. She saw that in an Eastern-style room, in front of a small table, Noah was sitting on a cushion that looked very comfortable, drinking one cup after another. On the small wooden table in front of Noah, plates of food were neatly arranged, and there was also a pot of wine that was almost half empty. It was obvious that Noah had been sitting there drinking and eating for quite some time. Understanding this, combined with what Noah just said, Chun-Ji finally remembered what happened before she lost consciousness. Immediately, Chun-Ji's eyes widened and she quickly got up from the bed. With an expression that looked like she was about to cry, she repeatedly apologized to Noah. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's all my fault. It's all my fault." Seeing Chun-Ji's fearful expression, Noah couldn't help but recall what Aisha said before she left. Chun-Ji fainted almost every time she saw a man's body. She couldn't serve a man at all. "Over the years, when Chun-Ji fainted, I replaced her position," Aisha said. "This girl didn't know about this at all. She always thought she was being enjoyed by a guest while she was unconscious. In fact, she was still perfectly fine." In other words, Chun-Ji had always maintained her purity, but she thought she had lost her virginity. Other people lost their bodies and kept their hearts, but Chun-Ji kept her body and lost her heart. In fact, this Volpara girl was still pure both physically and mentally. However, this girl didn't know about this at all. Thinking of this, Noah couldn't help but laugh in his heart, but his mouth said so. "Alright, you don't have to blame yourself. I've already enjoyed myself to the fullest. There's no need to apologize." As he said that, Noah looked at Chun-Ji with a ridiculing gaze. Under Chun-Ji's gaze, he said those words that made her feel incomparably shocked. "Or rather, I'm actually quite satisfied with you, so I want to redeem your freedom." Redeem myself. Chun-Ji was stunned on the spot. As a prostitute, Chun-Ji naturally knew what redeeming her body was. That was a rule unique to Happy Street. In Happy Street, generally speaking, there were 2 kinds of people who chose to become prostitutes. One was like Aisha, a woman who followed her own desires, voluntarily immersed herself in pleasure, and embarked on the path of prostitution. One was like Chun-Ji, a woman who owed a debt or had signed a contract to sell herself to the owner of a brothel. She was a woman who had no choice but to do what she wanted. As for the so-called redemption, it was a rule of paying the person's debt or the person's own ransom to buy the prostitute they liked. In other words, it was to take the public prostitute for private use. This kind of thing was not uncommon in Eulalie. Adventurers enjoyed themselves to their heart's content in the happy street and spent a lot of money to buy the prostitutes they liked, letting them accompany them and serve them. There were even cases of them becoming lifelong companions and spending the rest of their lives with them. Even among Ishta's family, similar things had happened before. Although Ishta was extremely narrow-minded and couldn't tolerate even half a grain of sand in her eyes and saw Freya as her mortal enemy, she was still the goddess of love and beauty. Therefore, in the past, there were also cases of high-level adventurers redeeming the basic members of her family and obtaining Ishta's approval to let them go. Therefore, for many prostitutes, redeeming themselves was equivalent to a princess meeting her prince. Almost every prostitute had done it before. One day, a powerful adventurer suddenly took a fancy to her, redeemed her, and spent the rest of her life with her, and dreamed of getting married and having children. Chun-Ji did the same. As an unfortunate girl, Chun-Ji wanted to escape from the cage of Happy Street more than anyone else, get rid of the control of Ishta's family, and live a happy life. However, that was unrealistic. Thinking of this, the panic and apology on Chun-Ji's face began to disappear and was replaced by a gentle smile. "Thank you for your appreciation, sir. It is Chun-Ji's honor to be chosen by you. However, I'm afraid you will be disappointed. Chun-Ji is not only an ordinary prostitute, but also a member of Ishta's family. Without the approval of Ishta, the main god, I can't be redeemed." "Then can't you just get Ishta's approval?" Noah, as if he didn't notice anything, held a glass of wine, drank, and replied. "I can see that you don't have much fighting ability. I guess you're just a low-level member in Ishta's clan. Even if you're redeemed, it won't affect the clan at all. As long as I'm willing to pay, the master god Ishta won't disagree, right?" That was indeed the truth. If it was just an insignificant basic member, then the main god naturally wouldn't keep a close eye on them. For a family like Ishta's family, which belonged to the top in Eulalie, presumably, a large sum of money would be more attractive to them than a non-combatant. It was precisely because of this that in the past, Ishta would simply agree to let high-level adventurers redeem the basic members of her family. Not only could she get a large sum of ransom, but she could also befriend high-level adventurers. No matter what, she wouldn't lose out. But was Chun-Ji just an insignificant, basic staff member? The answer was naturally no. In Ishta's family, Chun-Ji's status was indeed not high, even lower than the basic members. At least the basic members were still considered human, but Chun-Ji was just a tool that provided powerful magic. However, such a Chun-Ji was the trump card of Ishta's family. With magic that could raise one's level, Ishta had long regarded Chun-Ji as the biggest trump card against Freya's family. No matter how much money he had, it was impossible to redeem Chun-Ji. Chun-Ji, who was well aware of this, still had a smile on her pretty face, but it began to have a trace of sadness. Master's good intentions, Chun-Ji appreciates. Chun-Ji said sadly. But, Ishta won't allow anyone to redeem Chun-Ji. My lord, you should give up. What's wrong? Noah asked with a straight face. You don't want to be redeemed. Or you don't want to. I naturally hope to be redeemed. Chun-Ji lowered her head and couldn't help but say. But Ishta will never allow Chun-Ji to leave her family. There are no absolutes in this world. This sentence means that there is nothing in this world that can be described as absolute. Noah said lightly and stood up, coming in front of Chun-Ji. Just like when they first met, Noah stretched out his hand, lifted Chun-Ji's chin, and raised her pretty face to face him. Looking at her pair of pitiful eyes, Noah said. If I can redeem you, what do you plan to do? Looking at Noah's dark and deep eyes, Chun-Ji's heart couldn't help but ripple. If Milord is truly able to redeem my daughter's freedom. Chun-Ji bit her lips, and with a transparent smile that seemed hopeful yet did not carry any hope, she gave such an answer. At that time, no matter where my lord is, Chun-Ji will follow. Hearing this, Noah finally smiled. The reason why Noah stayed here was none other than Chun-Ji's words. As long as there was this sentence, it was enough. Very good. At that moment, Noah released Chun-Ji's chin with great satisfaction and turned around. Remember the promise you made today. After leaving such a sentence, Noah lifted his feet and slowly left the room filled with fragrance, disappearing from Chun-Ji's sight. Chun-Ji stared blankly at Noah's back until he disappeared from her sight. Only then did she lower her eyes. After an unknown amount of time, Chun-Ji's voice echoed. Can I really have a future? Chapter 2010. Bang! On the top floor of Ishta's base camp, on the balcony, an extremely loud shattering sound suddenly rang out and reverberated in the surroundings. It was the sound of a glass full of drinks being smashed on the ground, shattering into pieces. The amber liquid spilled all over the floor, and the sweet aroma of wine filled the air. However, the initiator did not care at all. She gritted her teeth and was extremely angry. Tyrant! 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 Ishta kept repeating this title, and the more she said it, the more hateful she felt. She still remembered that when she heard that Freya had tried to woo a man from the lower realm but was rejected, Ishta felt really happy. As a beauty goddess who could even charm a Prince Charming, there was nothing more humiliating than being mercilessly rejected by a human from the lower realm. At least, that was what Ishta thought. Therefore, the day she learned that Freya's wooing was rejected was definitely the happiest day Ishta had ever had since she came to the lower realm. Didn't you all say that bitch is prettier than me? Look. She can't even handle a child from the lower realm. This sentence had almost become Ishta's catchphrase ever since Freya's wooing was rejected. Once she met one or two acquaintances, Ishta would definitely say this sentence and viciously belittle Freya. She even brought it up during the gods' assembly once every few months as a joke, hoping to greatly embarrass Freya this time. However, Freya herself did not care at all. Not only was she not ashamed of it, but she also looked very happy every time this matter was brought up. She kept repeating the same sentence over and over again. So, can you understand how outstanding that child is? That's why I'm intoxicated. In other words, not only did Freya not hate being ridiculed and belittled, but she was also proud of it. Every time it was mentioned, she was like a little girl who had completely fallen in love. Her beautiful face was as red as wine, as if she could see the man's face and was deeply infatuated with him. Ishta, who did not have the same eyes as Freya, could not understand this kind of infatuation. Not only did she not care about it, but she also kept promoting Freya's jokes. To put it bluntly, the reason why Noah was so famous, in addition to the war game, was definitely not without Ishta's help. However, Ishta did not expect that the so-called karma would come so quickly. In just a few months, she had fallen into the same situation as Freya, humiliated by a man from the lower realm. Why? Why is our goddess's charm ineffective on that man? Ishta thought hard. Could it be that the man has some ability or magic that can resist charm? But that was not right. Although the charm of a goddess was similar to the negative powers of poisoning, cursing, and petrification, there was a big difference in nature. Being intoxicated and obsessed with beautiful things was an instinct of the people from the lower realm. As the embodiment of beauty itself, the goddess of beauty could only stimulate this instinct without limit. It was not a negative power. Therefore, even if there was any ability or magic that could resist abnormal states, it was impossible to be immune to the charm of a goddess of beauty. So, how could that man be immune to the charm of a goddess of beauty? Could it be that the man really had a heart of stone, and would not have feelings for beautiful things? If he is really like that, then he can only be a vegetable. Ishta bit her lips hatefully. That man doesn't look like a vegetable at all, does he? Ishta did not know that the reason why Noah was immune to the charm of a goddess of beauty was because of his strong will. Noah would also be infatuated and obsessed with beautiful things, and would also like to have intimate contact with the opposite sex. Otherwise, he would not have married Mira and Lisanna, and also had a relationship with Luohao, and privately pledged to be with the Holy Sun for life. However, that did not mean that as long as one was beautiful, one could make Noah obsessed. When he was in the world of the Dark Bullet, Noah had already understood that things that were beautiful on the outside were not necessarily equally beautiful on the inside. In that world, people who were wearing human skin on the surface, but were simply synonymous with evil in the dark were almost everywhere. Coupled with his childhood experience and years of bitter training in the deep mountains and forests, it was not an exaggeration to say that Noah had seen through all the forms of life. It was simply a fool's dream to want to make Noah give his heart with just beauty. Moreover, although Noah was a human, his essence was the reincarnation of a world fragment that was bred by the world. A goddess of beauty could charm people and gods, but could she charm the world itself? What a load of nonsense. If that was the case, Ishta was destined to be a tragedy. However, unlike Freya, Ishta was not as flexible as Freya. This extremely narrow-minded goddess was only left with anger towards Noah for rejecting her and humiliating her. Don't think that I will let this go. I will definitely make you regret it. Ishta took a deep breath and then coldly called out. Tammuz. Under Ishta's call, the human youth who had previously threatened Hestia's family walked in. His attitude was still respectful as he bowed and waited for his overlord's orders. Then, Ishta said. Go and find out when the rest of the members of Hestia's clan will be alone. Find a chance and tie them up for me. The human youth named Tammuz was stunned. After hesitating for a moment, he said so. But, Mistress Ishta, Apollo's family used the same method before, and the result, don't compare Apollo with me. Ishta looked at Tammuz coldly. I won't be like him. I don't want to be complacent and come to you without knowing the strength of the opponent. Although I don't want to admit it, the tyrant is too strong. Even Freyne, who had reached LV6, was defeated in one blow. Even if we use all our family members, we can't win against him. But, if we can't do it openly, I don't believe that we can't do it secretly. Ishta sneered. I won't use the tyrant's companions as hostages. I'll use my charm to imprint my mark on his companions and make them my spies. They'll stay by the tyrant's side, and when the time comes, I'll let them rise up and push the tyrant into a dead end. I don't believe that a human from the lower realm doesn't have any flaws. Ishta clenched her fists so hard that her fingers turned white. I also don't believe that my charm is ineffective on him and his companions. Hearing this, Tammuz breathed a sigh of relief and quickly complimented her. Mistress Ishta, you're really not comparable to the existence of Apollo. Hearing this, Ishta's face looked better. Unfortunately, Ishta didn't know that she shouldn't have bothered the people around Noah. Because that was Noah's only weakness and Noah's biggest reverse scale. Just when Ishta was admiring her idea and Tammuz was about to retreat to carry out the orders of the Lord God, a terrible sense of oppression suddenly fell from the sky and shrouded them. The smile on Ishta's face froze. Tammuz's figure was frozen there. It was as if an invisible mountain had suddenly fallen into this space. The terrifying pressure fiercely suppressed Ishta and Tammuz, causing them to widen their eyes at the same time. Their blood suddenly flowed faster. Their hearts suddenly beat faster. Their bodies couldn't stop trembling. Their teeth couldn't stop chattering. Ishta's neck was stiff like a clockwork puppet. She turned her head little by little and looked at the corner of the open-air balcony. Over there, on the railings facing the happy street, a figure had appeared without anyone noticing. He stood facing the wind, his robes flapping loudly in the strong wind. Looking at Ishta, who was staring at him with her eyes wide open. Noah's expression was as oppressive as an erupting volcano. His dark and deep eyes flashed with unprecedented coldness. Soon after, an indifferent voice that was as cold as ice resounded. "You are looking for death." A murderous aura rushed toward her. Ishta's pretty face suddenly turned pale. Chapter 2011. Whoosh! The wind in the middle of the night was like an invisible wave that swept through the entire palace of Ishta's family, making the air a little cold. On the open-air balcony, Ishta's coquettish lips were trembling, and she couldn't help but take a step back. Feeling the heavy pressure in the air and looking at the figure standing on the guardrail, Ishta spoke in a hoarse voice. Why are you here?" Hearing this, Noah just looked down at the trembling goddess who couldn't help but take a step back, and a feeling of anger surged in his heart. Noah knew that Ishta was a very narrow-minded goddess, so narrow-minded that she couldn't tolerate even half a grain of sand. Because of her one-sided jealousy, this goddess treated Freya as her enemy. She kept excluding Freya and slandering her. She was almost unscrupulous, making people feel that this woman wasn't the goddess of love and beauty at all, but a vicious woman through and through. But even so, Noah didn't expect Ishta to be so narrow-minded. Although he had disgraced the goddess, Ishta's family didn't suffer any substantial losses at all. Moreover, previously, Ishta had sent people to the base camp of Hestia's family to threaten and bribe Hestia. It was obvious that she was in the wrong first, so even if she was retaliated against, she had nothing to say. As a result, this goddess actually had malicious intentions towards Noah's companions in her family. The reason was that Noah had embarrassed her. The phrase, "a woman's heart is the most vicious," was best interpreted by Ishta. Originally, Noah wanted to tell Ishta that she had been framed by others. With the information as a reward, Noah planned to lay his cards on the table with Ishta and redeem Chun-Ji. Although Chun-Ji's role couldn't be easily given up, the information Noah brought was exactly what Ishta wanted the most. Presumably, it should be able to persuade her to give up Chun-Ji. But now, Noah didn't have that thought at all. "You're courting death. You can't blame anyone else." Noah raised his feet and jumped down from the guardrail of the open balcony, landing in front of Ishta. This action directly stimulated Ishta. "Men! Come!" Ishta screamed. "Someone come quickly!" Hearing Ishta's shriek, a commotion suddenly broke out in the base camp of Ishta's clan tribe. Bang! Not long after, the door of the open balcony was knocked open, causing a heavy sound. A group of combat prostitutes rushed in with weapons in their hands. They surrounded Ishta. However, when the battle whores saw Noah in front of them, they were all stunned. "Tyrant! Why is he here? Cut the crap!" Ishta screamed. "Take him down!" A group of combat prostitutes suddenly tightened their faces. They couldn't care less and all rushed to the direction of Noah. Unfortunately, before the group of combat prostitutes could touch Noah, a violent impact shook from Noah and exploded in all directions. Boom! Amidst the thunderous booms, the combat prostitutes were all struck by the formless energy. They were sent flying like kites with their strings cut. They either crashed into the walls or rolled on the ground. After twitching a few times, they were no longer able to move. Wails, as if they were late for a long time, sounded from the combat prostitutes who fell to the ground one by one. "What?" Ishta took a deep breath. These combat prostitutes, as Ishta's clan tribe, were all LV-3. Such a large number of LV-3 battle whores were all killed without even a single confrontation. They were all the elites of Ishta's clan tribe. More than half of the strength of Ishta's clan tribe was supported by these LV-3 combat prostitutes. Such a force was all killed at once. The existence of LV-6 was killed in one blow. A group of LV-3 existences were also defeated at once. When did such a terrifying human being appear in the mortal realm? Could it be that the existence comparable to LV7 could be so strong? Strong enough to defeat the entire clan tribe that Ista was proud of alone. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Ista shouted as if she couldn't accept it. Tammuz. You go too. On the side, Tammuz, who had been quietly waiting, stepped on the ground without any hesitation. Like a bullet, he rushed toward Noah. Whoosh! The extremely fast speed made Tammuz's figure suddenly turned into a residual shadow, as if he flashed through the space. With a faint sound of breaking the air, he instantly rushed to the front of Noah. That speed had already exceeded the level of LV3. This human youth was a LV4 level 2 adventurer. In Ista's clan tribe, except for Franny, who was the leader, Tammuz was the strongest member of the entire clan tribe. Therefore, this human youth was allowed by Ista to be a follower and always be by her side. Without this level, Ista would never take him out to meet others. However, at best, he was only LV4 level. Almost at the same time when Tammuz rushed to the front of Noah, a terrible impact exploded in front of Tammuz. Boom! A muffled sound resounded. Tammuz could not even clearly see when he was attacked. All he felt was an incomparably frightening energy viciously slamming into his body, causing him to groan. His entire body was sent flying backwards at a speed faster than when he had arrived. Ista only felt a gust of wind blowing past her ear. Tammuz flew past her at an amazing speed, heavily hitting the wall on the side of the door. He slid along the wall and fell to the ground. Ista was sluggish. In less than a minute, all the guards protecting the goddess were taken care of. Noah's eyes looking at Ista didn't weaken at all. His eyes were like a sharp sword, piercing Ista's body, making Ista's heart begin to tremble. Until then, Ista understood one thing. She had offended someone she shouldn't have offended. So, Ista finally began to feel afraid. Without thinking, Ista turned around and immediately wanted to escape. However, when Ista turned around, a figure suddenly flashed past her and appeared in front of her. "Ah!" Ista screamed in surprise. She retreated out of reflex. "You! What do you want to do?" Ista asked in a trembling voice. "I'm warning you, this is Pleasure Street, the territory of Ista's family. If you do anything to me, you'll be making an enemy out of all of Ista's family. Ista's family will never let you go." "Won't let me go?" Noah sneered. "You'd better worry about yourself first." "Worry about myself?" Ista almost didn't react. When she came back to her senses, her eyes widened in an instant. "You still want to attack me? You're just courting death." Noah slowly stretched out his hand and pointed it at Ista. "You can't blame others." The surging divine power surged from Noah's body and gradually turned into a spear of light, which was tightly held in Noah's hand. "Stop! Stop!" Ista's heart was trembling. She tried to act tough, but she was actually scared. Attacking a god is an absolute taboo. The guild will never let you go. "Really?" Noah suddenly smiled, but his eyes were extremely cold. "Then, I'll also tell you that attacking the people around me is also an absolute taboo. I will never let you go." As soon as his voice fell. Whoosh! Accompanied by a sharp piercing sound, the dazzling light of the light spear burst out like a laser beam, flashing and disappearing in a flash, heading straight towards Ista. Poochie! The clear sound of flesh tearing echoed from Ista's body. Ista only felt a sharp pain in her chest, and her body was mercilessly pierced through by the sharp spear of light. Her whole body was carried by the spear of light, and she flew out of the open balcony and fell into the air. Clang! In the next second, an unprecedented brilliance bloomed from Ista's body, illuminating the entire night sky. Chapter 2012. Clang! A radiance comparable to the sun bloomed in the direction of Happy Street, illuminating the entire night sky and attracting the attention of all the residents of Eulalie. What's that? It's so dazzling, what's going on? All the residents of Eulalie raised their heads and looked in the direction of Happy Street. Their faces were full of astonishment, causing an unavoidable commotion on the streets. As for the other gods, they all felt an astonishing divine power from the dazzling light, and they all looked at each other in dismay. For the residents of the mortal world, this phenomenon was just that they didn't understand what was going on. However, for the gods, no one knew better than them what the scene in front of them meant. A god was sent back to the heavens. Yes. A god was sent back to the heavens. Because he used his divine power. When the gods descended to the mortal world, they had already set up rules to seal their omnipotent divine power, leaving only the bodies of ordinary people for entertainment in the mortal world. Once a god used his divine power, he would immediately be sent back to the heavens. The scene in front of them was the proof of which God used his divine power. In other words, this divine general would be sent back to the heavens without any suspense. Is that the direction of Happy Street? Is Ishtar the one who was sent back to the heavens? It can't be, right? The gods all fell into an uproar. At this moment, all the existences in Eulalie were watching the radiance that was as dazzling as the sun. It was destined to be a sleepless night. In front of the headquarters of Hestia's family, Hestia looked at the dazzling radiance and murmured with a grave expression. Happy Street. It's Happy Street. A strong sense of uneasiness began to rise in Hestia's heart. After all, Noah happened to be at Happy Street tonight. Of all the times, something happened tonight. Hestia had a bad premonition for a long time. In addition, Noah's purpose of going to Happy Street this time was to inquire about the secrets of Ishtar's family. How could Hestia not have a bad feeling when something happened at this time? Exalted God. Baal was at a loss for words. What should we do now? That light appeared in Happy Street, right? Lily couldn't hide her uneasiness. Lord Noah just so happens to be at Happy Street. Did something happen? Hestia did not answer. Instead, her face was filled with uncertainty. After a while, Hestia took a deep breath and said, "Don't worry about it. No matter what, let's wait for Noah to return first. We can't act rashly." Got it. Baal and Lily nodded with difficulty. Hestia shifted her gaze back to the dazzling light in the sky above the Happy Street. Her voice faded away with the wind. Noah, you mustn't let anything happen to you. On the top floor of the Tower of Babel, Freya was also looking at the dazzling light. Her brows were tightly knitted together. Freya, who had been watching Noah's soul radiance, could clearly see that before the light appeared, and even after it appeared, Noah had been staying in that place all this while. In other words, no matter which god was sent back to heaven, Noah must have witnessed the whole process. No. Maybe, it was more than just witnessing. That child, did he attack Ishtar? Freya's frown deepened. That child, once again, did something I didn't expect at all. If it was really Noah who attacked Ishtar and caused her to be sent back to heaven, then it would be really troublesome. No matter how good Noah was, he was just a human. It was absolutely unforgivable for someone from the lower realm to attack a god. I'm afraid the guild has already started to act. Freya said helplessly. It seems that I misjudged the child's temper and went a little overboard. While Freya's face was filled with helplessness, the orc who was as strong as a tower in her room spoke in a deep voice. Lady Freya, what should we do next? Let's wait and see how the guild will treat that child. Freya pursed her lips, and a smile bloomed on her beautiful face like a flower. I hope the guild won't go too far. Otherwise, for that child, I might have to do something taboo and become the first god to attack the guild in 1,000 years. Attack the guild. What did that mean? It meant that Freya was going to challenge the manager of this city. That was no joke. Although the guild had not developed much power, it had always been the manager of Eulalie's existence. Challenging the guild was equivalent to challenging the police station in modern times. The end result was either imprisonment, a sentence, or banishment. At that time, even if Freya was known as one of Eulalie's strongest family members, she would only end up being wanted by the guild. As the manager of Eulalie, the guild only needed to issue a wanted notice, and those who wanted to replace Freya's family members, those who viewed Freya's family members as enemies, and those who wanted to obtain the guild's bounty would all be attacked, and Freya's family members would completely fall. Attacking the guild was such a serious matter. Moths to a flame, it referred to Freya's decision. However, as Eulalie's ultimate weapon, Otto did not hesitate to lower his head and respond. Follow the orders of our goddess. So what if they were moths to a flame? As long as it was Freya's decision, Otto would not hesitate at all. He believed that the rest of the family members must have thought the same. There was no exception. At the same time, on the open balcony of Ishta's family base camp, Noah was also looking at the dazzling light. His whole body was bathed in the light, and his face was expressionless. Ishta was done for. Although Noah did not completely kill her, she suffered a fatal injury. The god-sealed divine power would automatically be released to repair their master's body and save their master's life. In the eyes of the gods, this meant that the game was over. No matter what the reason was, as long as one used divine power, they would be eliminated in the game known as the lower realm and be sent back to the heavens. Therefore, as Ishta's divine power was released and began to repair her master's body, a dazzling light beam descended from the sky and enveloped the radiance. Buzz! An ear-piercing tremor resounded. Under Noah's gaze, the beautiful goddess named Ishta gradually turned into a burst of light particles, drifting all the way to the sky along the dazzling light beam and disappearing into the horizon. Shortly after, the light beam dimmed bit by bit and gradually disappeared. Almost at the same time, the bodies of all the members of Ishta's family changed. The grace from the goddess Ishta disappeared into the lower realm along with the beautiful Ishta and began to lose its effect bit by bit. How? How is this possible? The battle whores on the ground were all dumbfounded, unable to react. Tammuz, who sat paralyzed by the wall, was also in a daze and didn't react for a long time. At this moment, Ishta's disappearance caused the ability points of those who received her grace to lose their effectiveness. Unless these people were to enter a new family and the ability points behind them were dripped with the divine blood of the overgod of the new family, the grace would be restored and their strength would be restored. In other words, Ishta's family no longer existed. As soon as the overgod disappeared, these former members of Ishta's family would all become the people of the family with no family and obtain freedom. Including Chun-Ji. Noah killed Ishta cleanly and sent her back to the heavens. One of the reasons was that the goddess had touched his reverse scale. Another reason was that this was the only way to free Chun-Ji. The choice of negotiating with Ishta no longer existed when Ishta beautifully stepped on the landmine in Noah's heart. This way, even if Ishta returned to the lower realm, there would be no way for the original family members to return to her. Of course, Ishta had to have the opportunity to return to the lower realm. After being sent back to the heavens, it would be impossible for her to return to the lower realm without hundreds or even thousands of years. Therefore, in this life, Noah should not have the opportunity to see Ishta again. However, this matter didn't end like this. Noah turned around and looked at Tammuz, who fell by the wall and was dumbstruck. Noah narrowed his eyes slightly.